let time go lightly when I'm here with you. I let time go lightly when the day is through. I keep a watch on time when I've got home.
Ron Sutton. I was born and brought up. Well, really, I wasn't born in Ortonville. I was born clear out the Bald Eagle Lake, 2 miles south of town, April 20th, 1929. And we really don't have too much family around Ortonville. Maureen and I have some grandchildren. Graduated from Ortonville High School in 1948 and lived on Mill Street since 1940. So I guess you'd consider me a native of Ortonville.
Okay.
I'm Maureen Scramblin, and I'm Ron's sister. I was born in June 16. And I have not lived in Ortonville only about 11 years. I've lived most of my time in Brandon and Groveland Township. And I don't have relatives here in Ortonville outside Ronnie and Mary Lou and their family. But I have plenty of relatives in Groveland because I have 5 children.
Francis?
I'm Frances Wills. I was born in Ortonville, April 16, 1924. And my grandparents were the Kents and the Giles. Gile was a blacksmith down on the shores of Kersley Creek. And in relation to the Howells, the Saunderses, and a lot of other ones, I'm sure. But there were, my grandkids now are at least the 5th generation that's going to Ortonville School. And I guess that's about all for right now.
Ron?
Okay, I'm Ron Turnbull. I was born in Groveland Township on September the 8th, 1933, in a house on Grange Hall, which is still there. I'm related to the Ottens, the Richmonds, the Saunders, the Howells, the Ortons, the Tyndalls, the Truaxes, the Kipps, and the Enders. There might be some more.
And where on Grange Hall was it?
First house on Grange Hall Road from M15. I was born right there, right across from the cemetery.
Okay. Kathleen?
Okay, I'm Kathleen Lees. I was a Saunders. I was born November 10th, 1918 in Ortonville on Cedar Street, and I lived in South Street across the road from the stores until I was married to Ellen Lees. My mother's parents were Howell Crafts, and they were all from this area. My mother was born in this area, so that pretty much tells the story.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Mary Lou Sutton. Married to Ron Sutton. I'm a native of Ortonville. I was born in January 1st, 1931. I was born on one end of Mill Street, got married, moved to the other end of Mill Street. That's as far as I've traveled. And I've been related, I was formerly a Cooper. My grandparents was Richmond, then Ottens, Howells, and Enders. And we're the 4th, we have had 4 generations in the Ortonville High Public Schools.
Good. Now, who is related to who at this table? Anybody?
What was that?
Who is related to who at this table?
Ron and I are cousins. And like I say,
Brother and sister.
All right.
Kathleen and I are cousins. Related.
Well, really, all 4 of you are.
Yeah, I'm related to Ron Turnbull.
Yeah.
We're all related.
And,
Yeah.
and Mary Lou too, really.
Sure tell.
We go back far enough.
Okay. Why don't we just start with some fond memories? Just anybody talking about how far back can you remember the Ortonville area? And this includes Brandon Groveland area. Well, what would be your first or fondest memories?
Kathleen, do you remember, or Fran, do you remember when the main streets in Ortonville wasn't blacktop? They've been blacktop ever since the main street, church
No.
stuff.
I remember when M15 was in a blacktop, but I don't remember when the street in
I can
Ortonville.
remember back when we lived in a little house where I was born, when they blacktopped it.
M15 or
No, Mill Street.
Mill Street.
Was that the first time, you think, or re-blacktop?
No,
I remember when they named the streets.
Wow.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I do.
How-
It sounds funny, but I do. I remember when they named James Street after James Staples. They named Myron Street after Myron Delano. Was Kersley Street was named after Kersley Creek, I'm sure. Narren Street after John Narren. Cedar Street was named after the Cedar Swamp.
Oh, okay.
of course, Mill Street would be the
Mill Street was where the mill was. Church Street where the churches are.
South Street.
South Street went south. South.
Is it
You
simple
got
as
on
that?
South Street, you went south.
Grange Hall was originally Narren Road until about 1933 or 34, somewhere in there, and it was changed to Grange Hall Road.
On kind of the old Grange Hall.
The old Grange Hall, it was up on Tripp and Grange Hall.
It used to be narrow, did you say?
Yeah. I got a map at home that shows 1932, 1933, somewhere in there, and it was called Narren Road. Because it was named after, I don't know if it was just John Narren or the other brother too, because the other brother, Will Narren, owned property on Grange Hall Road also.
Of course, their dad had the farm there, where Groverston's.
Yeah.
That was John and Will's dad, so, yeah.
So that
That was
road
out
was
where?
probably named after him at that
What
time.
roads were those near? What you're talking about?
We're talking about
Groverston.
Grange Hall.
Grange Hall and what?
And
Jossman. This
Jossman.
Okay.
Grange Hall and Jossman.
Whenever we can name a road, let's try to give them
um,
crossroads.
I remember when the only streets in Ortonville was blacktop, and that was Church, Mill, and South. Because,
When would that have been?
well, they started blacktopping some probably about 1950, because I remember Les Saunders was the village on DPW, and I know my dad was on the council. I think one of the very first ones in fact, I know one of the very first ones they blacktopped was Cedar Street.
Oh, Cedar.
But it
Because
wasn't blacktop when I was
Yeah.
going to
Oh,
school.
no. I was out of school because they had an old village bought a road grader from Frank Doyley. Doyley Farm was where Stone House is, corner of
Yeah.
Wolfett. And they put a short tongue in it, and they'd haul it with a village truck. Les Saunders would run the grader, and I'd drive the truck. And he got an old brake drum or something he put up in the truck and had it fixed on some kind of a stand. Then he had a rope that run back, and when I was not doing just as he wanted to, he'd bang that thing. I hear that bang, I knew I better check and see what Les wanted. And that was long in the well, like 48, 49.
Then when would M15 have been paved? Was that done
Back
before?
about
way back?
1929.
Well, didn't they open 15 from South Street to Mill Street in about 30, in the very, very early 30s?
South Street to Mill Street.
15 from South to Mill was the last chunk to open. Because I've heard my dad tell about working down in there with horses, and it was right where the little creek crosses the road, just beyond the deli there. There's a little stream, goes from Narren Lake down to there. I've heard him tell about what a terrible time they had with the muck and the mud and the quicksand. And
You're talking Duck Creek, yeah.
No, right here by Tom, the little creek
Oh,
comes out of
yeah.
Little Narran.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
a lot of people don't even know it's there.
Oh, that's right, I know where it is now.
And I've heard Dad talk about what a terrible time with the horses and stuff they had in there because it was the mud and the muck and stuff was so
You
bad.
mean on the road?
And I think that's probably because when Dad worked teams on the road, we lived in a Macaulay place at Baldy Lake, and I was born there in 29. So it would be, I think I'm quite safe in not saying the exact year, but in that 29 to 31 area there somewhere.
That's
Would
when
that-
15 went through the back of the barn here, that he worked with the team.
But he come as far as Ortonville.
How long was it that they did Allen Road for M15? That you said they bypassed, or did you use? M15 used to go Allen Road? When
Part
were
of
they,
it,
when
not
were they,
entirely. Not
just
entirely.
part of it?
Allen to Holcomb to get into Clarkston.
Okay. When would they have made that section of M15 then, like down towards Seymour Lake from,
Well, that
You're
was,
talking Seymour Lake down to
Like
Tyndall Road or down to Oak Hill Road in there, because
Yeah.
they used to go back there to, M15 was back there once, before they put the curve in.
Allen Road was 50. Well, they didn't call it 15.
No.
That was the way they went to Clarkston.
Yeah, but see, when you went down Seymour Lake Road to the first road and took a right.
No, no. You went right down Allen Road.
Okay, I know where Allen Road is, but,
Mhm.
And then they hit Holcomb and into Clarkston that way. One thing
oh,
I
okay.
remember about that is, I don't know why, but Dad and I was talking one day about the World War I armistice. And Dad, at that time, Dad was going to Pontiac with a wagon load of stuff from the farm. And he got down just this side of Clarkston, along in there about where Arnold Mann lived and that. And some guy come out in the yard and was shooting his shotgun. And of course, Dad had a team of horses, and it scared him. And I remember that Dad says, "What the hell are you doing?" And the guy said, "The war's over." And Dad said, "I always remember. That's right where I was when the war was over." And that war was over when in 19.
It was over the day she was born. The
Is that
day
right?
after. Oh, day after.
And that
I
was
was
when.
born the night before, just before the midnight, I guess.
What year did you? I know you said
1918. But speaking of M15, now we had that old 25 Chevy, and I remember we used to drive out to Baldy Lake. That was a big event. You got to go for a ride on Sunday afternoon out to Baldy Lake and back. But we had to go on the gravel road down around by Green Lake. And then when the water came up close to the road, and I was always watching when we went by because there wasn't any windows in the car, it was all, and I was scared that water was going to come up too close to the car. We were going to go in the Green Lake.
I always wondered if that was more of a main road, because I've always
Oh, it
known it
was.
to
There
be
was,
there.
yeah, it was
It was.
M15.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always known it to be, there all those years, but I wasn't sure how it was
They
used.
straightened it out when they paved it.
Do you remember when the first stoplight was up at M15 and now?
And the first stoplight, you mean before they had one downtown?
I remember the
That was
downtown.
way before the one you got now. Way before. When they took it down.
I think I was about 10 years old. I used to sit in my bedroom downstairs and watch it go on and on.
That's what it was, just a.
No,
caution,
it-
or
No, it,
Oh.
the
I
turn.
think I vaguely
Yeah.
remember that. You remember that, Kathy? I like being there.
Yeah, but I had to stop and think about it. I forgot
Me too.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was there.
And they thought they didn't need it anymore?
Yeah.
That's right.
Wonder what they do with that one right downtown the village now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't need that either.
No, they
They
don't.
don't.
Well, I think we need it because a town without a stoplight is pretty bad.
But there's full of traffic down.
I wish we
I
had one
remember
right
that.
out here in front of the house.
I remember that one. It's by my only memory of that one going up. No,
I
everything
know,
was
and I think you
before.
ought to be able to
Everybody
turn
gets-
right on red.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're right
Yeah,
there
they're
for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you know what got that, why that stoplight was put in there first is for the fire department. And it was going to be one that, when the fire whistle blowed, it would turn red and give the fire department.
And that's when they're right at, that's when they're located right at the end of South Street and Mill.
Cause I was
The
on the
township
fire board
offices
when
right now.
that all
Yeah, I
happened.
think I remember getting a ride with you in that old car with me, well, with your dad, riding into town.
Because I could drive when I was
Yeah.
12.
This
We
was-
didn't
this
actually
was
have a
your
license.
dad's car,
Wow.
And,
12?
I rode from Aunt Luna's downtown to our house in that old 25 Chevy.
The Bluebird.
Was she
So
12
that-
at the
Yeah,
time?
the Bluebird.
Remember the bluebird?
Yeah.
And-
Was she 12 at the time when you got a ride with her? She
I
said
don't
she could
think
drive as
so.
early
No,
as
I
12.
don't think
I was
so.
like,
No, I didn't. She wasn't driving when I had to ride with the family.
She rode with my dad.
it's a scary
So-
notion
but-
right now.
But 25 Chevy, and I'm thinking of the dates, the year. So it was in those years, we were still driving on M15 wasn't through yet. So like you say, it was in the 30s, wasn't it?
Of course, she's no, but
29
a
29
little
or
big
30,
thing,
I think.
another big thing that held 15 up a long time is when they got north of Goodrich up there and you get into that low muck, that low muck area, they spent, I don't know how long, but I've heard Lee Groverstein, he worked for the contractor that put it in there. They worked for just months, and maybe even years to get through that muck. Of course, they didn't have the kind of equipment they have nowadays. That really held 15 up for a long time. Now, where they went, I don't know what road they would have used while that was on, but I know he told about how the muck up there was just, really pretty near impossible for him to handle. And that held
Still
15.
the DUR went through there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Another interesting story that I always think about when anybody talks about the UR. I remember one day I was down at the station when they had, and there was some gentleman come in, I don't know, he had lived here in the past and he was talking about the UR. He was asking me and I was telling him where he went and I said, well, I never rode on it because it went out before my mother was sitting there and she said, oh yes you did, you rode on it lots of times. So, I was born in 29 and we quit in 31. So she used to take me her folks lived in Oregon. So when I rode DUR, but I never knew it.
I did.
You probably remember.
I
oh,
remember
sure.
riding.
I remember riding it.
Oh, sure.
Not
No, I know I didn't.
I didn't.
I was gonna say, I don't remember if I
Well, I
ever.
rode on it quite often. I go to Lake Orion to do practice.
Of course, I could see it go by right from the front of my house.
Oh, sure.
But,
And of course, it went right in front of the old schoolhouse, the old high school there
Sure.
on Cedar Street.
And that must have been quite the highlight to have that train come in front of there because I've had more people say something.
Well,
It ran in front of the school.
the teachers, like Nellie Kelly was a teacher, and she rode
From Oxford.
the interurban from Oxford to Ortonville to teach. Got off right there at the school.
I don't quite.
See, we were more modern.
Yeah.
And do you remember how much it cost to ride?
I don't remember, but
I've
I
got
know
a tape.
there's something down at the mill that tells you.
I've got a
There's
tape that
tickets.
my mother made, and she told how much it was to ride.
Because Betty
And now
Storm
I
had
can't
told
remember
me,
for sure. I should
Yeah,
have
Maybe
reviewed
10
it.
cents.
Betty had told me
It's just
that
a few cents.
she had to, well, she said something about it took her 25 cents to be able to ride it to Flint. And she had to her mother made her earn another 25 cents to make sure she got back.
Who was that said that?
Betty Storm.
Betty Storm.
But Doris Bailey is told her name is not Bailey now, but it's Doris's last name. But anyhow, she lived east of town, and she told me just recently she would ride
Massey. Her name
to
was
school
Massey.
for 7 cents each way. 7 cents. There was the 2 kids, so they had to have 28 cents every day to come to Ortonville and return.
Wow.
You know, when you go out,
Probably a lot too.
the next time
Yeah.
you go out South Street, you get about in front of the dentist, you look, and the blacktop's cracked, right where the old track curves there. You can see it right today.
Oh, right, just this side of the funeral home.
Yep, right
Yeah.
there.
What's interesting is we followed that if you go on the side of the school, you can still see the old pillars or whatever you want to call it that held the train track
Embankment.
through there. And you can follow it all quite a ways. It's
See, all that
interesting.
property is still owned by,
You are?
Well, a lot of it's
Looks
owned
like
by Edison.
now.
yeah,
Edison.
Edison, that's what it is.
But Diane, that was not a train.
No.
It was a trolley.
Probably, okay.
Yeah, electric trolley. It's
I always think
different,
it would be in a,
you know, with the big thing out the
Right.
top of the,
You know, one of the biggest things here in Ortonville that I hated to see go was the mill pond.
That was
Because I remember when N.L. and Uncle Charlie lived over here on Bond Street, and I used to go down there, and Uncle Charlie would go out there and had a bridge. That walk across and went over to R.G. Merriweather. And Storms lived in a little house. It was a doctor's house, in a little white house. Yeah, and,
The Storms lived this side of there.
yeah.
South Street, was it? Is that what
Yeah.
you-
yes.
Right by the creek.
Right by
Well-
the Church Street loop now?
Storms lived in a little yellow house, Ron. And
Didn't
then,
they live in a little white house too?
well, it might have been white, but it was a
I
little
thought-
house where the parking lot
The one that's
is.
torn
Yeah.
down now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gone. But R.G. Merriweather's, is that the same house that's there now? Is that R.G. Merriweather's house?
That was the old Doc Atchison house. That's the house that's still there. Part of it.
Well, didn't Doc Edgerton also own that little square house that I'm calling,
That I don't know. Very well.
it was a doctor's place
Dr.
first. Yeah.
Murdy.
Now,
Okay.
what would it be today?
It's in the parking lot there, but where the fire hall is.
Fire hall? Okay.
And
Well,
about
the
where Church
chiropractic
Street
one
comes
that's
out.
across the street, how long was that there? Was that,
That's the old Saunders house.
no, the one that's
That's
on the other
Dr.
side of Church
Richardson's.
Street loop that's on the corner that the chiropractor is in right now?
Yeah.
That was Dr. Aitchison's.
That was, oh, okay.
See, that was a lot bigger. And
Oh,
the village bought that house from Tom Thurlby's. And they tore the wing off to build the Church Street extension. I was on the council when we done that. So that house, if Prinder, we tore off Prinder as much as there is left.
wow.
Okay, now where's R.G. Merriweather's house then?
That I'm not familiar with.
It's either that house or it was just north of it. Just next door to
That
it.
name doesn't ring a bell with me, does it, you, Kathleen?
The name does, but
Oh,
I don't, I thought they
R.G.
lived out on,
Merriweather was down there when N.L. and Uncle Charlie lived there, because I
I
remember
thought they
her.
lived out on
I-
Sands Road.
I remember her living over there because her and Aunt Ellen used to go back and forth a lot. And then you were talking about Aunt Ellen's house there. Aunt Ellen had that spring-fed refrigerator in the house. It was ice cold to keep milk in. And then in the basement on the stairs, she always had cookies on the stair steps going to the basement. And they were the big sugar cookies with a great big raisin in the middle, and she also had great big molasses cookies.
Oh,
And mints.
They made
Oh,
them
mints,
She
large.
yeah.
had those pink and white mints. Always had them.
But I can
I
remember
still like those
sitting on
pink
Uncle Charlie's
mints, but I
lap in
have
a
a hard
rocking
time
chair at the
finding
front
Yeah,
door.
you can't find them.
You know, getting back to the DUR for just a minute, interesting thing is that, see, that run right down the middle of South Street. And when they went out of business, they deeded that. Anything in the village, they deeded to the village. Well, here, of course, South Street and Mill Street and Church Street used to be county roads. And the county was always giving the council and people a bad time, so they got the bright idea that they wasn't going to let anybody angle park in front of the hardware and store it. So the council, some of the guys like Brother Bob and Don Barnes and that bunch said, well, what are you going to do? We already own the middle of the street. And of course, the guys that was dealing with it on the county, they didn't believe that. So, but the village owned the middle of the street. So actually, all the county owned was a little on each side.
Yeah.
So that was, and a lot of people, and I have no way of knowing, but I've heard people say that South Street is blacktop and the old railroad tracks are still in there.
Yeah,
Whether
that's
they
right
are
there,
or
too.
not,
Over the top.
but
I
I've
think
heard
they
that.
are. I don't think they ever took them out.
Well, what makes me think maybe that is true is because the blacktop always cracks in a circle down there where the tracks turn. So it could be true.
And did they turn right around Cedar Church Street Loop or past that? When did they turn?
Well, just
Right.
Where you going?
Just for the funeral.
Yeah, just before.
Okay, so down five.
Almost
so
across to
where-
where that flowing well used to be, or still there.
Okay, that's where it went through.
It aimed right at Doc Hewlett's house. It was aimed right at it and it turned right in there when it was coming from the southeast.
So then the dentist and the other house that was there were not there at the time, I mean, back then. Those were newer homes.
The
Yeah.
dentist place.
Between the funeral and the Doc X.
Kathleen's brother built that
Yeah.
house.
Ellen Saunders, Red built that
Yeah.
house for the
Those
dentist.
two weren't there.
Right, okay, so that's where they went through, okay.
Mhm.
He would have built that, in the early 60s?
I thought
When did
I thought it was in
Dad
the
die?
50s.
When did Les die?
61. I have to stop and think.
Well, Red built that before your dad died.
Yeah, it was,
Late 50s, because that's dated, that house is dated, it's got the same kind of brick my house
Yes.
has. So it's dated.
Yeah, right offhand, I can't think what year it was. Because he bought that property when they lived next door there, and then built that house. And I remember something about that easement from the Edison, you know, they acquired that easement, I believe, but I don't want to say for sure. I think that's the way it was.
Who actually owned the mill race when it went out?
Jack Hamilton. That was part of the mill. He owned the mill and that.
And that when all the mill race went all the way to the pond across South
He
Street.
owned the whole mill pond. He owned all of that bottom land. The school bought a lot of that from Jack.
So where would that mill race have come through?
Right where we're talking about.
Same area as the train? They said
No,
they
No,
went.
no. It's right by the parking lot of the fire station.
Okay, so it came off that end where the loop is now around there, came off that end, came
See, the old mill pond ran all the way around to this road here. Ran all the way around to here, right? Almost, because there was a
From there,
dam.
yeah.
There was a dam right back here.
No, there wasn't a dam there.
Yes, there was. There was a dirt dam back here. Just stopped
Well,
water.
a bank but not a dam per se.
right here at the curve of the Church Street Loop, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a dirt
That's
dam
what I
back
thought.
there. That's what I called it in a way, that held the water and it went down the mill race from there.
And so it pretty much was near what the loop is right now, going around the back of
Pretty close. I'm pretty close to the
the loop, the other loop. I mean,
to the
Right-
post
right
office
back
parking
of
lot.
MacArthur's
Okay.
house. It went right
Went
right
right down
through there.
Mhm.
There's a bridge here. It went around right in back of MacArthur's house,
Okay.
and then on down towards the mill.
That road that goes back there was the mill race. The one between
And how?
Davis Street there,
Yeah.
that was the mill race in there.
And then wasn't there kind of a pond behind the mill then at that point? It became a pond there too?
Pretty good sized pond.
That's
and
what it
pretty
looked like.
deep too.
And that's when that they hand dug everything, didn't they, to make all that, the mill race and?
Probably used horses and slip scrapers.
Well, your picture's down the mill.
Yeah.
I got
Right, the
pictures
ones that
shows
they
the slip
show.
scoops and everything.
And
Right.
that dam that was back there in the back, the end of Pond Street, they used to try to regulate it by that dam, because they could change the flow of
Well,
what do you call it?
The mill race,
Yeah, the mill race.
they had boards they could move out on
Yeah.
South Street.
South Street, and then
Uh-huh.
of course, this while ago I was at a football game and there was somebody I was talking to, and I said, well, where them kids are playing out there, that used to be one of our favorite pike fishing holes. And the woman looked at me and she said, what do you mean? I guess she thought probably I was nuts, and I said, yeah, we used to fish out there. She said, how'd you fish out there? I said, well, that was all mill pond. And they people really, I don't think a lot of them
They can't
quite believe you.
Yeah.
They cannot believe that little field down there was a pond. I mean, down below, they
That's
just
why a lot of people just.
Yeah.
And you
didn't
can
like
see
the
it when
idea
you
of-
look at it.
Thinking of building a school in that area.
Yes,
with all that.
I know, and
Controversy about
Oh, yes.
And you can see where the pond was. I mean, you can see how that field was and how it goes up and
Yeah.
up again. And
But that's why it's always so cold down on the football
Oh,
field.
yeah.
That football field
Always
used to be
cold down
freezing
there,
one
'cause
down.
The worst one
Damn.
now.
Now
That
you
was
have to put a
cold.
fish house on.
now, did it go all the way around to where the football field is now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it went all that
Right
way
up to
from
where
where.
Varsity Drive is.
Yeah,
Ice
it came all the way down in here.
Wow, that was a large
Back
one.
over here.
Surrounded by water.
I think
Yeah.
probably it was one of the worst things that ever happened to Ortonville was losing that mill pond.
Yeah.
But you see, Jack Hamilton had owned it, and he had just put in just within the year before that, he put in a big electric motor to run the mill with. So
He
Jack
owned the
could,
whole pond?
oh sure, that all went with the right of
It
way.
is. Now, what fed that pond at the football field in? Was it the creek or?
And Kersley.
And Kersley that, okay.
Quick, clear, flip. It
Yeah.
just-
And what
that
did,
whole
what?
mill pond, the whole mill pond,
She's still amazed by that whole mill pond.
Yeah, he
the
owned it.
whole mill pond, where the school was owned by Jack
There was,
Hamilton.
well, the high ground was where Betts had a little
Yeah.
farm in
Well, he sold by
Yeah.
that school too.
there. Right. But the mill,
So who
it's
had a farm in there?
Betts. Vic Betts.
Mr. Betts, yeah.
He'd have been Vic would have been the uncle of Karen's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because
you know,
his,
Doc Uloff owned that house that was on the corner there.
We bought that. I was looking just the other day, I was looking at a picture. We burnt that down. I was on a school board and we bought that.
And that's where the intermediate school is now? That
Yes.
occurred when they did that one. I remember seeing pictures of the fire of that.
who lived in that
The
house?
library. Yes.
One there by the high school.
Oh, there was a ton of Russ Jinks and Helen lived there
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, that was right. Suey's lived there once.
Suey's did?
Oh, there was a lot there. Suey's lived there when he was the dog catcher.
Ed was the
No,
dog.
Miller. Miller. Family by the name of Millers lived there, and he was the dog catcher.
I guess I didn't know them.
See, there used to be a little road you could get to that house off of 15.
Which house? Which,
The one who was just talking about just burnt.
oh, okay.
There used to be a little road.
Oh.
But that was right there beside Flood's house. Flood's lived in a basement house right there on 15 because we used to get, out of the creek there, we used to get, what's the green stuff that you had made solid with out of that creek?
Watercress?
Watercress. We
Oh.
used to get watercress on that creek. That was years ago, you wouldn't dare do it now.
No.
See, that property where the school is, we bought a little chunk from Byers, and then we bought 3 different pieces from Ulaw's. They own 4 pieces. They had the little piece where Floods was. And we had to buy that. They wouldn't sell it all at once. We had to set certain dates when we could buy that, I suppose, due to the tax purposes or some reason. And of course, Grace Uloth was still alive. And Grace, I don't know, of course, she knew me for so long. She was the only one that the school lawyer or the superintendent or anybody called her up to try to make some headway on this deal. And she'd say, I'll talk to Ron and then I'll get back with you. Because, she knew me and she didn't
Yeah.
know them. And she wouldn't even, I know the superintendent used to get so mad, he followed the name of Versnick. He'd call and try to make some headway, and he finally called me and he said, you got to talk to Mrs. Ulow. She want to talk to me.
So then she had land behind her house that went across the creek then?
Yes,
So-
and they
So
still,
at one time that was all just a field? Of where the intermediate school is now?
we had a big controversy on that too. Everybody said that school would sink out of sight. And
Isn't so fair.
No.
see, the Ever Ulow house, their there's still property crosses the creek with that piece of property. Because Everett wanted a little chunk there, he was gonna build a bridge and have a little park over there. And we tried talking about all it, and Mrs. Ulof finally said, if Everett wants that piece of property, then you're gonna have to live with that, so we did. It was,
Well, there was an awful lot of controversy over our schools there.
that's another tape.
Yeah, altogether.
That's really something.
But you know, talking about interesting things, another thing I can remember when the mill was, see, Dad opened that Sinclair gas station in December of 1940.
And that was at the head of
That's
Mill Street in
right,
South.
where the Renchecks are now. But I've seen it late at night, as late as 11 o'clock at night or so, when trucks and horses would be lined up as far as the drugstore with wheat or grain waiting to unload.
Wow.
And people just can't believe that.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you see that picture there's one at the mill, and there's also a picture at the library, two women in front of the mill,
Yeah.
the buggy.
Mm-hmm.
The older woman is Betsy Otten, my grandmother, and the other young gal is my mother.
Oh.
So that's who that is.
I remember you saying that when you found that out. You were looking at that going, that's my.
Well, I got a picture of that home too.
Did anybody do anything on the mill ponds? I mean, go fishing, go boats, do anything
yeah.
on it? Swim?
Yeah, fish behind the dam and catch bullheads.
I fished there in the winter. I
We
had
used to,
Fish house.
like Mary Lou said,
On the
that
ice.
was good skating, because you could,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you could put on your skates. We'd go down right down here on Potts, put our skates on, and that was a nice skate clear up through the other end.
Wow. That
And
would.
fish and
That is too bad that never went. 'Cause that would have been really pretty.
excellent.
Yeah.
Trap, half the young guys in Ortonville trap muskrats on that mill pond sometime or other, you know.
I think it's a crying shame right now they don't clean the creek up down through there on the school property.
Oh, yeah.
Janice and I were looking at it the other day, and it's just all growing up here.
Yes, it is growing up.
The one that comes across the road in Duck Creek. Duck Creek is almost standing still now. It's hardly even moving.
You know,
It's getting grown up so bad.
the village is bound to have a trail along Kersley Creek from South Street. But the problem with it is, you know, they talked about this when I was on the council, and you can't, there's no way they can get on out to Mill Street. And I tried to talk them into, we could start right here at the end of where Church Street makes that curve. And between, you know, the school owns that property, you could have a nice walking trail from there clear through to Varsity Drive. It would be an excellent walk.
We tried to get them to buy that house down there at the end of that road so you could open this up and have a road all the way through when we built the new high school down there. And we could have got that house for probably $25,000.
It was a terrible mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It
But
wouldn't
see-
go for $25,000 then.
See, the village has a right-of-way from the end of Edward Street over here to right here on the curve. The village has a right-of-way all the way through there. And one time we got, when there was some, I don't know, ex-convicts or whatever, that they cut the brush and stuff all the way through there and staked it out. But of course it never amounted to anything. It doesn't maintain, and the village will never be able to build a street through there because they just don't have that kind of resource.
I think it would be an awful benefit to them.
Oh,
It would.
absolutely. It would
If you want
certainly.
to tie these schools into the village, that's one way to tie them in. I'd still say they ought to buy that house down there. And make it right through to the bus garage to the high school.
Oh, sure.
You take it, and you're getting a lot of that stuff out of 15. Of course, the people living there aren't going to like it because there's going to have a lot of traffic.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it's just strange seeing that bus garage gone that was on. That,
On
Richards?
yeah, and seeing houses there now, I'm like, that's my change that I see. So
Yeah.
Well,
things like that.
I remember when I first went on the school board on there, and that was after you were on there, and we had our meetings in that Board of Education right across from the bus garage, and all the records were actually in shoeboxes. I'll never forget that. All the records to school was in shoe boxes.
Lucky we
Wow.
were even.
Cheaper than buying bottles.
It was terrible.
Another interesting point about Ortonville, a lot of people don't know. One time Ortonville was the largest raw milk receiving station in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and they had that, where they have the station at?
Well,
Right up there across from the cemetery. Still there.
but
The
Okay.
older one.
the first one
was on
was,
Cedar
uh,
Street.
the first one was right where the garage, where the garage for BGO sat.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought it was in the ball field there.
See, there was a lumber yard and a milk station there in that area.
People used to bring their own milk. They had to bring their own milk to town.
That was also the old trolley garage too, correct?
No,
I don't think-
well,
The
I
big
don't,
barns?
oh no, I don't think so. That was,
The car barns were in Flint.
Bert, what was the Orton? Your dad?
Bert Otten.
Bert
Bert
Otten.
Hempstead. In back of his
No,
place.
the Orton that had the lumber yard.
Bert.
No,
Bertie's
Yeah,
got that place
Bertie
back
Otten.
in there.
that was Bertie's day. He had a pretty good size, and the school ended up buying that and using it for a bus garage. From Bert, they bought it from Bert Hempstead. Maureen and I was down to the funeral home in Clarkston to see a friend of ours a while ago, and they had some old pictures posted on the easel down there. We got to looking at them, and first thing I spotted was my dad, and my granddad was in the picture. As near as we can figure, it was taken on Guy Allen's farm, which
She's Allen Road.
ran of Allen Road. Because when our folks come here, they lived on Reese Road, so they've been in that neighborhood. And I couldn't believe that. I've got a bunch of copies of them.
Yes, I bet went to take to the mail.
But kind of interesting.
You know, another thing that people around here don't know anymore is where Enders Hill is.
I do.
I know the people that sit here do, but if you say Enders, if you say Enders Hill and somebody says, well, I know where that is, then you,
They're
They're dated.
Dated.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's been taken down a couple times.
in the 1950s, it was taken down. I got pictures of it when they first took it down with horses and slip scoops. And then I never got pictures of it in the 50s because it was cut down in the 50s and I was in a service, so it was at 54, 55. Because I came home on leave and Dad took me up there to see it. And we drove up on the north side and looked down there, they were digging the other side down here. But that's,
And how much would you say was taken off of it then? Cut down?
oh, 3/4 of it.
Those banks are pretty high.
Wow.
3/4 of that
yes.
from the top of the hill, probably 3/4 of the way down.
You know how
Wow, that was, because I was just reading about that it was the second highest elevation in Oakland County at one time.
Still is.
Is it
Natural,
now?
natural. It is a natural, not the, there's the ones that
Natural.
are not natural that are higher.
the highest
So
one
it
is
was a
at,
lot higher than what it is now? No wonder they had
It's out there
such
by
trouble
Monroe
getting over
Flats.
it.
Well, you should test Model Ts out on it and see if they can make it up.
That's what I was reading about there too.
the highest elevation in Oakland County is on General Motors Proving Ground.
But that's not a natural hill.
No, that natural elevation is the highest in Oakland County.
That would have been really
But I've heard
high
my
now.
dad and granddad tell about, well, I never heard my granddad, but I've heard my dad how they used to get over that with a Model T. They'd turn around at the bottom and back up, because the old Model Ts had more power
Yeah, you know?
in reverse than they did forward, so they'd have to start at the bottom and back up, and then they get up and they turn around, get on the other side.
I'll tell you what, I still got my Model T that I did that to, because I almost ran out of gas. And
Yeah.
it's steep enough up that it wouldn't flow from the gas tank, which was under the seat.
Oh,
to the carburetor.
geez.
And I'd stop it and I backed up like this, turn around and roll downhill and got it started again and put it reverse and back up the hill.
Wow.
To get up there with that old Model A fire truck.
Oh, that was something.
And of course, Kathleen's dad, Les Saunders, he was fire chief too. And I never seen, I never seen him get mad at his sons, but I seen him get mad at Murr one night. In fact, he got so mad, he told Murr he never could drive the fire truck again. we got out there and we finally got up it. And when we started down the other side, old Burr, her oldest brother, was driving. He let that old Model 8 go, and boy, that gravel and stuff on there. Of course, Les was so scared he didn't say anything all the way down. I was on the back, and I wasn't feeling too. My dad and I was on the back. And when he got down and got to the fire, if he didn't give Murr an off Coleman, he said, "Don't you ever do anything like that again." Man, he was. And I
must have had to caught you in, huh?
Well, they were in a hurry to get to the fire.
Yeah, sure. But we all wanted to get there in one
Right.
piece too.
So it would have been gravel then?
Oh yeah, it was gravel.
Is it
That
gravel
wasn't
for a
black,
long
that wasn't blacktop until in the 50s. It was after they lowered the hill is when they blacktopped it.
That
So
old
that-
fire truck, I could lay in my bed at night and if that thing would start up in the middle of the night, I could hear it. Right in my, well, the rocks.
I'll tell you what, that was a good old piece of equipment. Still is.
That's what they said they'd let the mill have if the other place would just buy it.
Now, was there any of the like quarter roads
You know, I'm
or?
not so sure they can do that. You know, there was a legal contract on that.
On the fire engine.
Really.
What kind of a legal contract?
It was.
Well, it belonged to the village, and the village sold it, and it got in really bad shape. Then the firemen bought it back, and they drawed up a contract that belonged to the firemen, not the fire department. And it didn't belong to the
They could
village.
have a problem then, couldn't they?
Yeah.
And Jenny Saunders, we didn't have any money, the firemen, we didn't have any money, so the township, or the village voted to lend us the money. I remember going over to Jenny's and getting a check. And Russ Jinks took me, and Sherry Luann went. We bought it from a man named Marsh, clear out on Washburn Road, and drove it back into town. By then there was no cushions left on the seats, we were sitting on the springs and everything else. So.
Didn't have any break.
However, if they could do that, that would be nice if it could be
Mhm.
just
Save it.
Yep, that's all my uncles. Grandpa and grandma, and
All those
mother,
boys.
Uncle John, let's see.
There's the old 25 Chevy.
Uncle
think
Grover,
that's
Uncle
red.
John, Uncle Ralph, Uncle Jay, Uncle Frank, Uncle Glenn, mother.
That's-
Grandma.
That probably was when Red was helping my dad to the gas station, because he's got
Probably.
a service station guy.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't noticed that.
You know something that I don't remember? I don't ever remember Grandma walking.
I don't know, she's in
She
a
fell
wheelchair.
down. She fell down the stairs, and I think it was in the 30s. Wasn't it? I read the article on it here just not too long ago.
Yeah, not to mention it, I'd forgotten.
But she was in my grandmother.
Betsy Otten.
She was in a wheelchair there all through the 40s. I know because. Well, wait a minute. I know when she fell, but I don't ever remember her walking. But I remember when Bob was home and Bob graduated in 43. Grandma got sick, and Mother went over there and stayed every night. And that was about 1942, I think, because Bob had a Model 8 pickup, and I used to drive over there and take her over there, and then Grandma was in the bedroom there, and after that, why she was in a wheelchair, so that had to be when she fell down the stairs, so it had to be around 1940. 142 somewhere in there, because I know Mother went over there for a long, long time.
You say,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
the
going
story.
out
Happened in
there with my
42 or
mother
43?
and
you say you
grandpa.
thought it happened in 42 or
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Still should have been put out.
Well, it might have been 40 then, because I remember where I'm putting my time on it, because I remember Bob driving over there with a Model 8.
Is
Bob
this what they
graduated
call
in
the
43,
Bluebird?
so I don't
Yes.
even remember exactly. He
That
bought
was
the
it.
Model 8 from Paul Tyndall. It was Paul Tyndall's dad, set out there in the yard.
Paul's dad was
This
fly.
is the old Bluebird.
And we went out there and put a battery in it and charged it, started it right up. And put gas
He used
in
to
it.
never milk it.
But anyway, I remember the last thing I remember about it, Ralph and Bob and I were coming home, coming down Grant Road to Perryville, and we lost the front wheel. The lugs came off. We skidded all the way down.
But Rosa graduated in 41.
Yep, she
And-
graduated with Bob. But
So was she in a wheelchair then?
She was in the wheelchair a lot before that, because I was out there with Rosa several times before we were in high school.
It might have been then when Grandma really got sick after that, then was when Mother went over there. But I always remember her in the wheelchair, right? I can remember her eating in the kitchen. Of course, there was so many people
Nice big
over there in the kitchen and everything. I remember Grandma standing out there cooking and stuff like that, but I don't know when the time was. I know I was just a little tight. So it had to be in the 30s.
Yeah.
But
See, this was probably in the late 30s.
there is a piece that was in the paper, I don't know if it was Defiant paper or what paper it was at that time, that said when she fell. And I've got that home in some stuff there, and I read that not too long ago.
I remember when the floor in the mill gave way, and Jack Hamilton was there, and what was Armstrong man's
Jay.
Jay? They took Jay to Goodrich, the hospital. But of course, I was helping Dad there to the station. I don't, to this day, I don't remember who the woman was. She run up to the station and she said they've had a cave-in down in the mill and they need some help. And I went down there and I remember the door was right, of course, where it is now. I just got in there and it was just right over there before you get to the next partition. I looked down in there and Jack was stuck down there and he said, "For God's sake, Ron, get me out of here." And we crawled down in there and it was, there was broken timber and boards and sacks and everything else, and we got it out. And Jay wasn't pinned in, but he was, for some reason, he must have been hurt enough they thought he ought, because they loaded him, somebody did, loaded him in the car, of course, took him to Goodrich. And myself, and there was a state policeman come. Him and I probably my dad, I don't remember, but we got enough of the crap out of there, so we got Jack out. He wasn't hurt.
And what year was that cave-in?
Well, I would say that probably was about, it was in the 40s. I was in high school. It would probably been,
Because her dad.
I can't remember,
46, and
probably along in
That's her
there.
dad.
I can't remember exactly what year Hamilton's bought that. I know there's a record of it.
Somebody
Before
mentioned
they
that
graduated,
Jay
they
over
did.
Sellers lived down there.
Before 34 they did.
No.
A church
And not Hamilton's.
Hamilton.
No.
Hamilton's open.
Yeah, but I mean the mill, honey.
Oh, the mill, to operate it.
Yeah, because when they had opened the station,
I have Hamilton's 1943 to 1960.
Yeah, that's
Does
correct.
that sound about right?
That's correct.
not
Jack
Morris
Smith?
Brandt,
Gerald.
Gerald Brandt was running it. When they had opened the station there, Gerald was manager down there running it.
Oh.
Him and Bert Kyer working down there. So the shipping association then owned it till 43.
Right, so 1932 to 1943 they were there, must have been.
And that's still that original floor in there, isn't it?
So what did that association do exactly? I mean, were they taking in animals or?
No, feed.
Well,
Just
they
feed,
did.
that's all it
They
was?
did it one time. They had
Because there's quite a name to it. You know,
They had a little
livestock
stock.
and produce.
little stockyards just north, go right on up Cedar Street, and just where the big White House is, just on north of there, and on the left-hand side, there was little stockyards there that belonged to Ortonville shipping, because they owned where the old school there, where the old mill was at that time. There was little stockyards there.
Where was this stockyard?
Well, you know where the old mill was, the one beyond the senior building there? It was a school, and then they turned it into a mill.
Okay, you're talking the old white school.
The old white school.
Yeah.
Just beyond that, there was a little stockyard.
Okay, that's right.
They used to grow up, you probably remember that, don't you?
That was the old
Wood
academy.
fence, the
The academy.
stockyard.
I remember that fence, but I don't remember when it was in operation.
And did Cedar Street go all the way through there at all time? Okay,
No.
all the way out to Oakwood?
Yep.
It
Right
didn't
where-
used to,
Well,
no.
it did in my time. I don't know when it,
I don't know when it was put through either, but I remember when it was not,
Yeah, yeah.
all the way through there.
Well, and the question I'm supposed to ask, does anybody know about the wagon and team of horses and maybe a person that fell through Cedar Lake? That's Cedar Lake at one time?
I don't know, but we
It's
always
supposed to
heard
be at the
that.
bottom of the
We
lake
never,
or something?
My
We
mother
were never
told
allowed-
that on that
I've
tape.
heard that, but I
You're
don't know.
never allowed
I've
to go
heard it.
anywhere near that lake, because we were always told there was no bottom in it.
Yeah.
And nobody even dared to go near it.
all the old
So it's been a
timers,
story that's been around and around, but no answer to it,
the
okay.
old time, I'm like the rest of them. I've heard that, but I never heard that anybody, like Les and her mother and these older, I never heard anybody that ever could confirm.
Yeah.
I don't know, so that's just like Little Narren Lake or that other lake down just north of Bald Eagle Lake. There's
Yes,
Green Lake, they're deep. They're very, very deep. I don't know how deep they are either.
They always said there was no bottom to that.
There's gotta be a bottom somewhere.
It's muck.
Oh, the one at Green Lake, was there a house by there or some
There was a
main,
Right.
farm there.
a farm there or something?
right at the entrance where you go into the camp. It was a castle.
You remember that house
Okay.
Something
there.
there before Castleman's?
Oh, yeah, that house hasn't been gone that long.
No, I know, but I don't remember it. All I remember is, the only thing I ever remember about Green Lake is them doing those.
You're talking
those
the house
scarf
between
things
the
on-
old M15 and the new M15 there? Yeah, that's the first place that Janice and I lived when we got married, was upstairs in that house.
And Castleman's house.
Well, Castleman, yeah, originally, Castleman's was across the street.
No, Castleman, that was the house, and the farm was on both, the barn was on
Oh, okay.
and the house
That's
was
right,
there.
that's right. And then, the guy that owned it, when I rented the upstairs,
McFeely?
McFeely.
Yeah.
McFeely.
McFeely bought that property on tax sale. That and all
And
that
developed.
they
Well,
did.
then how long had the camp been there, the
Not that
campground?
long.
No.
Well, it was in the 50s, it came about in the 50s, because we were married in 58.
In the early 50s, probably Mac bought that. And then, see, he bought the old DUR station in town and tore it down, and that clubhouse out there now, the first part of that was built with material from the old DUR station.
Oh,
Well, that's what happened.
The one, yeah, the one on, out at Green
it's
Lake.
just like trying to find the old
Clearwater
Groveland Township
Campground.
Hall.
Oh, I know where that
I know where that is too, but
What, the clubhouse?
most didn't
The
know
little
where that
clubhouse
was.
that they used there, the park people used there at Clearwater Campground. The first, I mean, there's been a ton done since then.
The bloody bucket.
The original
The old
was
township hall? What
built
was it?
from lumber out of the old
Groveland.
DUR.
Which hall are you talking
The
about?
Groveland Township Hall.
Oh, township.
Speaking of the Castleman's place,
I thought you meant the
M15
Green
separated
Hall.
it, didn't it?
Yeah. Split it right.
Yeah, it went right through their farm, and so then they ended up with houses on
That's
one
right.
side,
Yeah.
barns on the other.
I remember old Castleman used to see him driving around town, he had a big old, man, a big old four-door car, I don't know, a big old Buick or something. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do.
Driving around and
I had one daughter, her name was Anna. Anna Castle.
Was that barn though where the bank was? That barn that we're talking about or farther away?
farther south.
Oh, farther
The
south.
bank
I
was
was,
Cruchco's.
oh, Cruise, yes, you're
And
right.
that barn was just plain torn down.
Yeah.
But the other barn you're talking about, the one that's on McFeely's, is still there.
Yeah, but the one where the livestock was kept on the east side, that's gone.
Yeah.
But the one I'm talking about is there, yes. Yeah, right.
That one over on 4 hours.
What about if we run out,
Oh.
if we run out of tape yet?
That one we did, that one no.
You know, I remember back in the late 30s, or early 40s, when Grandpa used to come over with his horse and buggy. Always tied it in the big oak we had in the front yard. He had a ring in that oak. He tied it to the
He
next
probably never drove a car, did he?
I don't think he ever did. He always drove the horse and buggy. Always. I don't ever remember him having a car at all over there at the farm.
You know, and that's another thing people think when I tell them. You know, I remember there was, even after Dad opened the gas station, there were still 3 or 4 families that come to town. The Bowerns come to town.
Lurchin Fields?
Lurchin Fields and the Peacock brothers.
Yeah.
somebody out there from Groveland Township that lived all the way out by where,
Bowers, that was Bowers.
was, okay, and I'm trying to think who lived on the farm out there, and he was an official of Gray,
Great.
out by
George
Gray's
Gray.
there,
Great.
yeah,
Yeah.
on his
His
farm.
mother, of course, lived.
It was just his house, just this side of where Gray's lived, and
Mhm.
they had that four-wheel deal with rubber tires on it, used to drive it in.
And of course, people come, it wasn't unusual, right up to World War II, and even during war, when farmers would still come into the mill with a team of
Oh, sure.
horses. You know, I remember Charlie Arnold, and Carl Tucker, Lola Wells. Not often, but if they had a big load, a lot of times they'd come in with a
The
team of.
hitching post was there for a long time, that one that's next to the
Yeah.
old Grange Hall, or
That's right, along
the
there.
old Jew,
Mhm.
and there was not
Seagull's
anything
shoe shop.
discriminatory about it, but we
Yes.
all called him the old Jew.
What-
Shoe
Loving
shop.
kindness, he had a
One
shoe
that
store
lived
there.
on Groveland,
Oh, okay.
Right where the Grange Hall was.
Right where the, yeah.
There was a big hitching post
On
along
the road.
there.
Mhm.
On Cedar and Mill
Was
Street,
it Ditch
Right,
River
okay.
or somebody like that?
No.
where that
he-
bare
he
lot
spoke
is.
of
Right, where the beer lot is.
We used to go down Plan.
Bowers and
Bowers.
Bowers.
Yeah, he lived right next to Grandpa.
They would tie their horses
I
there.
can just see them, yeah, going by there. It's there, usually.
Was that
Might
where
be
he-
in
Bowers.
between,
Bowers.
but Bowers.
They lived right at the end of Croup Road.
The horse and buggy.
Groveland
Does
Road.
anybody remember going to either one of the Granges?
Yes, I do.
Grange or the
Hold
Grove?
up. Hold
The
up.
Grange,
She was, if I remember rightly, she
Yes,
was
I
like
was
up
trying
there.
to tell
Did you
you,
say the
Groveland
Grange?
Grange is what was known
Yeah.
as the
Grange.
Bloody
19
Bucket.
The Bloody
1940,
Bucket, the Grove and Grange.
45 or 46 is when the guy was a prisoner of war in Guadalcanal.
Ray
Ray
Cunningham.
Cunningham, when Ray Cunningham came home. I'll never forget that because they had, I don't know if it was an alumni banquet or
Yeah,
what it was,
It was alumni
that he
banquet.
spoke at, and I went with Mother and Dad. And I could still see him. He was just like a walking dead man.
Yeah.
Well, he had another guy with him that been a, see, Ray had been and survived the Death March baton,
They used to
and he
make
had a guy with him
lampshades
that was
out of
in
their
that
hide.
Buchenwald,
Yeah.
and they were stumping for some kind of a law. They wanted to make sure that woman, they called her the bitch of Buchenwald,
She
they
made lampshades.
made lampshades. If a
Oh,
man had a
I-
tattoo or anything, they
wow.
skinned them, and,
Yeah.
and they were promoting Congress and the Senate to give her the death penalty, is really what it amounted to. And they were going from, of course, Ray was here because of alumni thing.
Now, how big would the Grove and Grange
He
be?
graduated.
I
What would
remember
be-
about the Grange, but let's
Yeah.
talk about the Ortonville Grange other
Okay.
than the Groveland Grange, you know. Because my folks, see, as soon as we moved out, see, we moved here in 1917. And that Groveland Grange, or Ortonville Grange, soon was organized. And, you know, it was farmers that belonged to that. And all of the farm homes along Hadley Road and a few around Oak Hill, and we would go there for a potluck dinner on Saturday. And they'd have a meeting, and they'd always have a program. And I went to those with my folks, and I was not very big then. But that's when I learned so much of the history of the farm families lived in the outskirts here.
Mhm.
And then, see, we built two different Grange halls. The first one was over to Lauder and Grandin's. And that was just a bare attic room.
Mhm.
And my dad was master of the Grange then. And
That was upstairs.
that was upstairs. Yes, they had closed the stairway so it wouldn't be so dangerous, you know.
That would have been that store would have been where?
Where the hardware.
Where the
Where the
hardware
hardware is now.
Okay, where the hardware is.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Burnt 40, was it 44,
Yeah, the second
They burned.
story
43,
43?
or three.
I think so.
And then we acquired money enough so they built or bought the hall over there right next to the gas station, see. And that stood there just not so awfully long.
you remember.
1990 was.
Well,
Yeah.
burnt one, Bob, black
So-
that is.
So,
They used that for quite a few
what
years.
was that previously to the Grange coming in? So that
No,
building
there
was
was
already there.
originally a Grange Hall, wasn't it?
No,
No, not original.
It's not as
there
far
was
as
a
it
shoe
says.
store there.
That old shoe store, didn't they?
No, it sounds like the shoe store came after all the
The
Grange,
shoe,
right?
but it was a grocery store.
That's
That-
right.
That was
one
an
of the
old frame
earliest-
building though,
Frank-
right?
No, it
One
was
of the
where
earliest.
Frank
grocery
Skinner
stores.
had a grocery store.
You're right.
Okay, then that's it. I was
Well,
thinking
yes,
it was
that
built,
was a little
I was thinking it was
before my
built for the Grange,
time,
but it was previous to the
I
store
remember just
then.
that.
Well, that was interesting though. You know, the Catholic Church, when they first decided to build a Catholic church, they rented the Grange Hall, see, for a long time. And that's where the Catholic Church started, was when they met at the Grange Hall. And Dad would go over and build a fire, you know, in the old wood stove on Sunday mornings for them. So the Catholic Church, that was its roots.
Now,
I
what
remember
was the reasoning for the farmers getting together? What kind of decisions are they making, or what was the, besides the potlucks and the friendship
Pressure
and all that?
legislations and stuff to help.
Was
the-
that-
They were always lobbyists, but then they also developed co-ops, you know, for farmers to buy grain through and insurance and that type of thing. So it was,
So looking out for the farmers, right?
oh, absolutely, that's what it
That
was.
was good.
But see, the Grange was a fraternal organization. It's different from Farm Bureau. That was a fraternal organization, and they had a ritual, and they voted on members. You didn't get in unless you was voted. And we have some of those things in that display case upstairs.
Juvenile Grange.
Now, the Grange is practically gone now in Michigan. There's just 2 or 3 counties that have a little Grange.
I remember the old Grange Hall in Groveland where they used to, back in the 50s, they had dances out there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So-
I remember well.
That was the social center, yes.
How big would that be then? Would it be about the same size as the other one here?
Oh, that
That
was
was
bigger
big.
building.
That was big.
Bigger?
That was at
Yeah.
least twice as big, I think.
Yeah, it was a big building.
Yeah.
And they even had an indoor toilet, which was very unusual.
Yeah.
But
That
they
was
had a
right
great,
there on the corner, you know, where the corner of Tripp and Grange Hall.
Yeah.
The Bloody Bucket.
And how did it get that name?
They used to have the most horrible fights you can ever imagine.
Okay.
But you know, these Grange and the town halls, they were so important to a community.
oh, yeah.
Because, like, well, all of us here, but, you know, we had alumni banquets. I mean, if you had a social function, you had 2 choices in Ortonville, the town hall or the Grange Hall.
Mhm.
So we had dances, we had proms, we had basketball, everything.
Yeah, I
them
remember talking about the
buildings,
basketball games at the old town.
them buildings.
Yeah.
were
You had
just-
to, the
Yeah.
spectators had to feel like they were in the game.
Oh.
And just like that Grange Hall, they had the most important dinner of the year, the milk dinner, they called it, in about February or March.
Yeah.
And they would feed around 200. That was farm families, just think of it.
Yeah.
And dairy herds, you know, which is
Hey,
practically
you
nothing.
remember
Which
the
is
old-
basically what you saw probably everywhere you looked was farms back then and
Oh, yeah.
not
How many
split
of
up
you
so
remember the
much.
old thrashing parties?
Oh,
Sure.
lots
On
of
the
them.
I
farm?
used to help cook meals.
Oh, man. it
So
could
did
be
I. So did
I
I.
remember Mother had a double tank, or which she used for washing. You know, she'd rinse the clothes in. So it was always my job to fill that so the guys could wash before
Yeah.
they ate. Well, you know, the first few, the water was pretty good.
Oh.
But by the time they got done, it was pretty rank.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
Mary Lou started mentioning about the juvenile Grange.
Yep, that was
I
part of
remember,
the
and I
Grange.
was in that. And,
So was I.
yeah, and we went the year when we went. They had the State Grange in Pontiac, and we went down and remember
Pontiac, Central High
Central High
School.
School.
But we had a degree team
Yeah,
there at the Grange, you know, and we went to several towns and would do where there were Granges and do the degree work. That was always fun.
And what would be the degree work? What
This
is
was
that
young.
exactly?
the ritual of joining.
Joint? Okay.
Yeah, they had a ritual, see, a little book.
I think any kid could join. but-
There's one of them, I think, in the display there. Just like the stars and Masons.
And the free shows, nobody mentioned the free shows in our.
Oh, yeah. And the
The old-
band
the
concerts
old
up by the
screen-
corner.
The screen that was back there where the old fire hall was, or where the township hall was,
No.
the bleachers.
You get a nickel to go downtown and
Where would it be set up at?
Right
Right.
at the village office, or the
Right.
township
Okay.
office now,
Okay.
back in there.
Mhm.
Because there was a
Saturday
band,
night.
There was a bandstand back there, a wooden bandstand, remember?
Yeah, they used to
Yeah, one
have band
I used
concerts.
to play
Bandstand.
it.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Outdoor movie theater.
And they used to what, show it up against the wall?
No,
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 They had a big screen up
Did they
there.
have a screen up there?
All the people, the town of every Thursday night, people would just,
They used to have
Act
cereals,
in
and I
Ortonville.
remember one with Burnout Farms.
Really?
Yeah, you'd see a little bit of it each week, continued, like a cereal. I don't know why I
That's
remember
so you
Burnout
come
Farms,
again.
but
Cliff Hickey and some of them used to bring their cars up there and park them about 8 o'clock in the morning of the show, so they'd be in the front row.
You could set, the rest of us stood up.
oh, so
Yeah.
long.
And
yeah,
the Grange made a lot of their money to
What was-
pay for that. They popped popcorn, and a bunch of us kids, so it was, like Maureen said, we'd go around, we had a little wooden box with a strap, and sell a bag of popcorn.
We used to make fudge and sell in a little paper bag. And a fact about the school system, how that has grown. See, I graduated in 34 and there was 21 of us. And that was the largest graduating class in Ortonville had. It was Ortonville, not Brandon then.
Right.
And then it decreased again next year when Lori graduated. Things, the number went down. But 34, there was 21 of us, and that was quite a fact.
When we graduated, ours was the highest.
26.
26, and now there's close to 200.
Well, I think you all.
Some year way
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
200.
Is it been way
We're
over?
kidding.
Well, when Ori,
So that shows
Ori and I
progress.
graduated, there was 11.
Oh, really? Ours was 15, I thought
Our,
that was
our
low.
brother graduated with Kathleen, what, 36?
36.
I don't remember which two Ottens it was, but I think it was Uncle John and Uncle Grover, or Uncle John or somebody over there. There were only two in the class. One was Val.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
I remember that.
every year.
Uncle John and.
I think it was Grover.
Was it Uncle
I think
Grover?
so.
Now, what do you remember about the old Ortonville High School that was
I
there?
got
Cedar
that
and
thing here.
Ball.
Now I can't
The one
find
on
it.
Cedar
I know
Street,
I
you mean?
had it.
What do you remember about the inside of it, or what can you tell me about it?
Fire
The most that I always remember is that chute. Everybody talks
Fire
about.
escape.
I was scared
Yeah.
to death of that. When I
Well,
started
was
in
everybody?
Ortonville, I was in the 7th grade. We imported the kids from the Oak Hill School out on Oak Hill Road. And when they said fire drill, you had to go down that chute, I was just terrified.
And I just loved it.
We used to go
I
home.
did
And I'm sure the boys were at the bottom helping you
Yes.
out.
Yeah,
Yes.
no question about it.
But what I liked about it was in the summer, school was closed,
Mhm.
but we'd go down there and play. You
Mhm.
take off your shoes and socks, so you go up in your bare feet. That's the only way you could climb to the top.
Ah.
Bare feet.
And
Get
you
a
did
piece of
that.
wax
We did
paper.
that.
Yes. You had
Just
to
to
take
get
the
the
wax
ride down.
paper so you could slide back
We used to
down.
go home from school and then come back, bring a piece of wax paper.
Oh, yes.
Because that
Put your
wax
old
paper,
clothes
Betty always talked about.
Yeah, it used
She
to
always
be
talked about
awful
hanging
shiny,
around
you
that
know
school
that.
all the time.
Well, Diane, on the main floor,
Mhm.
there was 4 rooms, 2 on each side as you went in. And on the second floor, there was chemistry, typing, and a room. There had been 3 on the north, and
The
only 2.
library.
The library.
Yeah, and the library,
Little skinny
right.
library.
And the office.
Yeah, and the office was
That
right
would be
in.
upstairs though?
Yes.
Mhm.
And then when they got crowded, they built a cafeteria, a classroom, 2 classrooms.
classrooms in the
The
basement.
band room, and
They
another
didn't
room.
build a
That's when they
cafeteria.
first started to have.
Well, they
lunches.
had hot lunches.
They had
Yeah.
a kitchen down there.
Right in the middle of
Yeah, but they had a little
the
cooking.
way to the
And that didn't start till after I
bathrooms.
graduated.
So when you went in,
You went up
what was
the
your
stairs.
stairs? Okay, right up a flight of stairs.
Mhm.
White
And then what-
stairs.
Just like Clarkston.
Oh,
Shaped
okay.
rim.
Shape and everything.
You know, that was a terrible, that would have been
With
a
that.
beautiful museum.
Oh,
Just absolutely wonderful.
even
Well,
my
Well, it would have
daughters,
made beautiful village offices too.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of things.
anything.
Would have.
Who was on
My
school
daughter
board
was
that
just looking
decided
at that
that?
today and goes,
Well, I was
Mom,
not
that's
quite.
the
I
worst
went
thing they
on,
could've done,
they've
tore
done
down that
that.
school.
I went on in 65 and they sold that property in 63 and 4.
But there wasn't an
You
awful lot of
probably would have
publicity
sold
at all.
it too.
Oh, I would have, Mary Lou.
We heard
You're
it was
right.
going to be
That was the time when before people got interested in this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
well, it was
Yeah.
during I think it was during the 60s, the Grange was lost. That was, I mean, that Groveland Grange, I think, was torn down, and then the
Yes.
school was. And so there must have been a
There was, people
cleansing
didn't,
of whatever, not realizing.
Yeah.
They
And they
just
started
saw it as
consol-
their old, buildings.
And they were consolidating all the country schools.
See, if I'm not mistaken, out there in Groveland, Oak Hill School was built and paid for by Groveland Township, believe it or not.
Oak Hill was,
Yes, it was.
and then that was
Built
brought
and
to
paid for by
Ortonville.
Groveland Township, because I read that in the
Nice.
paperwork out there. The town hall was built the same year. And
I found this.
what was the other building we were talking about out there? The Grange Hall.
The
Grange Hall
Was built.
was right in that, around that time too.
Was it?
In 1899.
yeah.
But I never could figure out why Groveland paid for
I
Oak Hill
can't
School.
either.
See,
I've been
they
looking
had,
all over
see,
for it. Here I
Groveland
put it
Township
underneath
was
here.
so
Oh,
close
I knew
there.
I had it.
Well, I
They
was,
probably had to do it to get the kids to school.
See, only
well,
half
see,
a
they,
mile.
that was
Yeah.
just down from where it splits Groveland, Brandon,
Yeah.
Springfield, and
Yes.
what was it, Davisburg?
Well,
That was
Davisburg,
Springfield.
Springfield.
Yeah, but then-
Independent.
Independence, so that was down
They
there.
all came to it.
That was just this, it was quite a ways this side. You went all the way from that curve, all the way down to where Paul Tyndall lived. I mean, that's where the Oak Hill School was, right there.
No, Oak Hill School was west of Tyndall's.
Yeah,
Right on
I know,
the
right there. I know.
Between Tyndall's and Grant's.
Yeah. But I'm saying Tyndall's because that's, I was trying to think of
They
somebody.
owned the
who lived
land,
there.
right.
Of course, Tyndall's was in Brandon Township.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but that was a long way distance between the township line.
Just a half a mile.
Because Clyde Tyndall was Brandon Township
Yeah.
supervisor.
Who?
Clyde Tyndall, Paul
Okay.
Stay.
Okay,
I found this
that's probably why.
graduation program, and it's the class of 1899, and it says it's the, what is it, the eighth?
Yeah.
The 8th annual commencement of Ortonville High School
In 99.
in 1899. So
No,
I thought there was some dates there that might be,
Does it give the kids names?
yes,
no,
yeah, well, yeah.
no, it gives the different ones that took part in the program.
No, but the names are on the back there. Graduates.
Oh, I guess I was looking for a list.
Yeah, there's only 7 of them.
Yeah. There,
Read the names.
You read it.
go ahead. There.
Alice Thayer, Grace Everett, that's Grace Shuloff,
Yeah.
Sarah E. Skinner,
Skinners.
Lena Bradley, Frank Guile. You know who that is?
My Uncle Frank. Who's your uncle?
Leo Otten, who was Ellen's mother's brother, and Lehman Huff.
And Lehman.
So this tells you that what I was thinking, 1899 is the 8th, so that would be 1891 was the first graduating class of Ortonville High School.
That's good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just found that in some.
S.H. Westcott was principal.
I remember that name. What's that?
Well, he went to Oregon, and our mother taught, my mother taught for him in Oregon.
And who else is on there?
And his son was a doctor.
Mrs. Will
At the
Naren,
Goodrich.
Oh,
West,
right.
Dr. Westcott up there, Goodrich. Hospital.
Yes.
That was his
Mrs.
son.
Yeah, Mrs. Will Nairn was an instructor in the primary department. And who is it?
Will
Some
Nairn or
Evans.
John Nairn? It's Mary.
Pardon?
That's a.
John's Mary.
yeah.
John's Mary, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of,
Will's
Will's
wife was Martha.
Right.
and she
Right,
wasn't born
right.
around here, I think, so.
Mhm.
Because Mary Nairn was principal at one
Yeah, it
time.
says she was, Mrs. Will Nairn was a primary. They had intermediate and primary
Mm-hmm.
and a principal. And yeah, that's all.
That's all.
That was it.
Let me see it.
Back to the high school on the main floor. Yeah, the first room had the kindergarten, first and second. And across the hall was the 3rd grade. And over here was the 4th, and then over here was the 5th.
Where'd
So
some
they
of those
got bigger
together?
when it.
But this first room, what I'm getting at is the kindergarten, first and
Yes.
Yeah.
second, all in that's just one room.
So they must have mainly had them come later or something.
Norm
my
Arnold
teacher,
was
well,
on
then
there.
Marie Selke was my teacher.
I heard it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Muriel DeLauder was my 5th grade teacher. 4th grade teacher,
And
because
Ruth-
Esther McCandless was my
Naomi
5th.
Dickinson.
Naomi Dickinson was my
She
kindergarten,
taught
first and second grade
kindergarten,
teacher.
Yes.
Who was?
At
She
the
was
time they
good.
built the new.
Naomi Dickinson was
little
my
white
kindergarten,
building
first and
that's
second
called
grade
the senior
teacher. She
I
followed us
never
right along.
had kindergarten ones.
Oh, you never had a chance if you didn't like the teacher, if you had her for that
Well,
many
no,
years.
she wasn't related to me,
They
but
didn't
she
have
was
her
not
done one
related
either.
to
She
them.
was really
She was
early
Aunt
on,
Ruth,
first
yeah,
grade.
Aunt Ruth
Yeah.
was her sister.
She taught bird school too. I had her at bird school,
Who's that?
Naomi Dickinson.
Oh, yes.
But this is, Kathleen, I don't know, this Nairn, it says Mrs. Will Nairn. Now Mary,
Mary.
Yeah.
no, Mary's husband was John.
Yes.
Right, right, okay, it was, what was her name?
Well, what's the
Mary,
what,
Mary Nairn was John's wife.
Yeah.
She was a principal here, I
Right.
know.
what
When
is
is that
John
from?
if it isn't William?
Well, they're
But
brothers.
what was Will name?
Yes.
Will was the banker.
Yeah, I know Will was, but isn't William and,
No, William and John's not the same.
And I don't think Martha Nairn was.
I don't think she was.
Martha Nairn was Will's wife.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, but she
She
didn't
wasn't a
teach,
teacher.
did she?
But was,
No.
Not that I
She
know.
went.
maybe.
what was John and Will Nairn's dad's name?
Maybe that was John too.
Because
I
he,
think it was John, because I think on the maps that I got out there on Rostein's deal, I think that was John Nairn, I don't mean John, I mean Will Nairn.
I think so too.
Could be.
I think John and Will's dad was Will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was
Well,
Will.
they could ask for
It
it.
was a older generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1899.
See, he had to be somewhere around the age of, almost the age of Uncle Charlie.
Because the Will Nairn that was in the bank,
Anders.
his wife Martha came from Detroit.
See, Will Nairn was in the
So
bank.
Will Nairn died, what, in the 40s? Okay, see, Uncle Charlie died in the 40s too, so they had to be pretty close to the same age.
Could we interest you people in a cup of coffee?
Long
Anybody want another cookie
long
or?
cotton sock.
Right. Yeah.
Here,
We had to walk to school.
And I had to walk all the way to school, Diane,
Well,
every
you
day,
did.
every
Oh,
noon, and every
my.
night. I had to walk all the way there and all the way
Yeah,
back.
about 2 houses.
Yeah.
Home for lunch, we had a whole
We had to go
hour.
home for lunch.
Remember the first 2 school buses we had, the old chicken coop and, I don't know what they called the other one. Huey Howard drove one and
My-
Howard Burt drove the other one or something
But
like
my
that.
dad drove that old square one
This
before,
Tommy
before
Terry
they,
drove
before
that.
Huey.
When
That's
it,
when they picked up the Springfield kids.
yeah.
Oh, down in Jasmine Road, or Jasmine Acres.
Was Tommy Terry one of the very first ones?
Let me tell you.
The first 2 that I remember was my dad, and they had this old Chevy bus, and they had one. No, Bert Hempstead was before Tommy.
Oh, goodness.
I think Bert, my dad, was the first 2. But Dad didn't drive. I think he only drove. Business picked up at the station, and he did.
Bird used to drive.
Bird drove,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember when Bird did.
Huey Howard drove. Bert Armstrong drove. The year Bert Armstrong got TV and had to go to TV stand. Remember, I finished out his. I was down at the station and I couldn't get away in the afternoon, so I drove it mornings. And they hired somebody. I don't remember who. Somebody else drove it afternoon.
Yeah,
That was the
Alan
only
used
job
to
Huey
drive.
Howard ever had. Driving school
Pardon?
bus. That was the only job Huey Howard ever had.
Well, it was easy. 'Cause
Yeah, him and Bert Hempstead drove for a long, long time.
Is that?
Yes.
Thank you. More
Dale
coffee?
Turner,
No,
did you ever
no,
drive?
Not my tea.
Oh, thank you, that was very good. You're
Just
new, I
right.
just love that lemon tea.
Did you really?
I don't think she
said
knows
lemon
lemon
all the
tea.
time, and I kept saying, that's what I want, but she wasn't saying lemon. Anyway,
Oh.
whatever this is good.
Apple cinnamon.
Apple cinnamon.
So can we go back to the talking about the telephone exchange?
Oh,
What do you remember about
What do
it?
you want to know?
Anything about it that was?
We paid our bills there, I know that. We didn't send them the
Yeah.
mail.
What years would you have worked down there?
40.
After you finished high school?
Before. You worked some there before
Yeah.
you
Before
graduated.
high.
About 47, 48, 49, and then 50. I went on semester.
Well, one thing I remember about the telephone lines is that they had people out in the country took care of their own lines.
Yes.
I mean, if there's
Oh, wow.
anything wrong, they had certain people that went out, because Alan's dad used to do that. And Alan used to have to go with him, I guess, and climb the poles when his dad got so he couldn't. But they went out and found the trouble on their own lines out in the country.
These operators, like from Detroit or anything, would call, and if you happen to know the person wasn't home or anything, you tell them, I'm sorry, they're not home. Well,
How do you know?
how the heck do you know where they're
You know, the biggest thing that
So
surprised
the operator knew everything.
Yeah, everything.
biggest thing that surprised me, I was just a little kid. And we went up there in the telephone office, and Frank Adams, a man, was working the switchboard.
What do you think it was Ed Adams?
Ed Adams, yeah. And I always just pictured that there had to be a woman at that switchboard. And here old Ed sat up there running that, and I just couldn't, that really stuck in my mind.
You know, you talk about how long lines stay. We just had our telephone line changed here last summer. Had to put a new line in. The original line was put in when I built the house in 58, 59. It was still hanging in the trees and in the ditch on the road. And it's still there. Yeah.
It is.
And it was
For
put
that
in,
long, it was,
That
well, no, it finally went bad.
what year did you say, 59?
About 59,
Wow.
and just fixed it last year. And then I had to raise hell to get it fixed.
There was
Yeah.
nothing.
I had to get to all and tell the guy where my
They
phone line
had
was. He
15
says, well, it can't be there. I said, well, it is.
It was what? About 15 numbers on one line, especially in the country.
So what'd you have to do when you picked up that phone? You'd have to.
Well, they had
Listen
long,
and wait
short
for-
rings, and
Yeah.
if you were smart enough to
One ring
learn
or
them.
2 rings or 3 rings?
If it was on a-
One long and
Yeah.
one short, one long, and 3 short, and
Yeah.
2 long, and
When my dad opened the station down there, that was in 1940, and there was a phone, the box was there now. So when he had it hooked up, he went over and talked to Jenny, and their agreement was that she wouldn't place any long distance calls without my dad's okay, because he was afraid something. You know, when that's something, I said, I can't place this call unless you get Bill's hook.
Ah, that's pretty good.
I quit. Remember the day I quit? I was so mad. Connie Farr was the.
Okay.
She accused me of making a face at Merce Saunders
Oh!
when he come up to pay his bill.
Oh!
I said, well, why would I make a face
She
at
probably
Merce
did.
Saunders? Oh, I was
She was a
mad.
little devil. Don't let her kid you.
I said, well, if you don't believe me, here's the switchboard. You do with what you want. I walked out. And she said, take it over.
That was when Connie Farm was
Mm-hmm.
But it was handy, like I was telling you, you call the operator, like when Les was fire chief, Dad, or I would, Les didn't go away very often, but if he did, we, would say, well, we're going to be at such and such a place. And okay, so if there's a fire call, they knew, they knew where to get a hold
It
of
was
it.
the early call forward. wasn't
Call
it?
forward.
Yeah.
way before its time.
Yeah.
People didn't
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And you could bring on your own party line.
Right.
Like
Oh,
if
yeah.
you wanted somebody on your party line,
Mhm.
all you had to do was ring
Yeah.
one long and 2 short,
On your
or
own
Yeah.
line.
on your own line.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
Francis,
you had to pick it up to see if somebody's talking, and then wait
till they were through, or you could use it.
That's what I remember doing, is picking up that phone and do it, just somebody on it.
There never was any secrets on there.
No.
10 or 12 people talk on the
No,
line.
because people would pick up the line and just stay there too.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad feelings about people hogging the line.
Yeah.
Especially people in the country line.
But that was their only way of contacting each other. I mean, at that time, that's people called each other to visit.
Yes.
I know we didn't have a party line very long, and I don't know how Mother and Dad did it, but Mother and Dad got private line. Like a private line as long as I can remember. But I do remember when we had a party line, but it wasn't very long.
The dad got a private line down to the station, and I don't think we ever had a party line here, did we? We always had a private line.
We did, we had about 3 parties on our line when we first had a telephone.
Well,
That'd
when
be
you
in the
work
late
for a
40s.
telephone company, you
Well,
can't
even
get a
1959,
little pull
that's
somewhere.
First
There's
line
gotta
I
be
got out
something
there
good
was a
about
private
it.
line.
Yes.
Yeah, then I finally got a private line.
I wonder when they stopped the party lines. Because I was trying to think, it would have been in the 60s when I would have probably remembered any of it. So late 60s at that, so.
Well, that's a
when
good
they stopped.
question.
I don't know when they stopped, because I remember for a little while, and then I remember having a private one, so. Might not have been that long.
You know, they used to, when they took
Yeah.
out these big old phones around town, we used to service the telephone trucks down there, and them guys would come in at night, fill up with gas, and they'd have a whole bunch of these strode in the back, and they used to just beg you to take them, and of course, I don't want that junk, so now they're worth what, $300 or $400
Oh,
a piece?
yeah.
Now they got dumped.
What's worth 300?
There's these big old wood phones like that.
Oh, yes.
Out there in the
The
dump
phone
is
we saw
probably
in the
worth most of
museum.
them.
They
Yeah.
were, they take them right out there and throw them in.
Now, the dumps, wasn't there one on the beginning part of Granger?
Well, that's where the telephone.
And then wasn't there, then I remember the one out on M15
Yeah,
down
I'll pass.
near Oak Hill.
Sound.
The
Yeah.
village
Yeah.
had a dump just this side of Kersley Creek on Grand.
Right beside the creek.
Yeah, since I never
They
knew
were
about
actually
that one
dumping
until
in the
just
creek.
a little while ago.
That's where all the telephones are.
You see,
Jeez.
that belonged to the village. And the school owned all this property up here where they tore down the old school. And I was on the school board. And we sold everything on the west side and the Rhoda J Hall. Sold that to the Rotary and the JC. We had that piece left on the east side of the road, Sherman Park. And when that come up, I said to the guys, I said, the village really should have that. And they were all in agreement. So Charlie Sherman was president. And I called Charlie and he brought it up to council and they wanted it. And we was going to sell it to them for $1. The council said, well, we'll trade you the dump for it. So you can get some,
Mhm.
So we give them that, and they give us a dump. And then we sold the dump the school sold the dump. We got $4,000 for it.
The one on the road right out here?
Mhm.
Granger.
I didn't know the school ever owned that.
Yeah, we traded with them just
For a trip.
just because the council said, well, we really want that property, and we feel you deserve something for it, so they give us that property, and it worked, at $4,000 at that time. That was.
I'm surprised they let them build a house on that.
I wouldn't know. I'll tell you that.
Mhm.
You mean that on Granger Road?
Yeah.
There was some people built.
Oh, there's
yeah,
houses.
There's
on
houses
there.
right on top of it.
Couple
Yeah.
of them.
In fact,
Well, I always think
when
about the one on M15.
I worked
I'm
at
like,
school, one lady came
Well,
in
there
one
is,
day
that
and
was
they
right
lived
across from
there.
Solly's there.
She
Oh, I
said,
wouldn't want to be living there.
they had their well tested, they told them not to drink the water. That was quite a while ago.
Yeah. I don't know, Mark Schillbinder's was on it. I don't know what.
How long did you work
I
at
can't-
school?
Almost 15 years.
Gene, how long can you work?
You were
Almost
beyond
it. Yeah, probably about as long as I did, maybe a little longer, because she used to, she volunteered a long time before.
You worked for Bob? Was you Bob's
Yes.
secretary?
Yeah. I started out, I playing for the kids for different groups, musical groups. That's how I started. Then they ended up there had to be an opening, and I applied for it. Fortunately, got it.
What year did you start?
Let me think. 69.
You probably put up with our youngest daughter.
Probably.
No, Howard Burt was there then.
Oh, okay.
'Cause she was,
And Mabel was there for 2 years with Mr. Harvey before I went in.
Yeah, so, yeah.
when
So she was there, was it 20 years or something like that? Maybe.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so.
every, just about noon or so, Luann would get a stomachache. And she'd go up to the office, and Howard Burt's would come and take care of it. Because I used to go get her, and I kept thinking, you know, this kid ain't got a stomachache that much. And so he had some mints or something in his pocket, and cold pocket. She'd get them in, and she'd go back, and she was all right for a while, but she kept it up. And he said, "This, I'll take care of it." And come to find out, she was getting her work done. She was only in first grade, and then she was getting bored, and she wanted home. So they started piling
Giving her more
more
work.
work. and She was happy
all
then,
right.
yeah.
Something to do, straight
Yeah.
But
away.
I think she ate all hours minutes.
I've known the kids like that. This mother would come get them home, they're fine.
Yeah.
Pretty soon she'd say, "Sure, no, there's nothing wrong. She's not sick."
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
what
they have to deal with whatever, you know.
The minute they started Dublin, I'd give her more work, keep her busy. She was fine, but she'd get her work done. She was bored. She didn't
They
want
have
to be.
enough to do.
Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Well, that happens
Yeah.
too.
But, you know,
That's
he
why they
was being
find
so
out.
used to the kids.
Mhm.
He says, "I'll take care of it," and he did.
So how old is Luea?
She was born in
58.
44.
57.
Is she?
Mary, well, because Mary
She's
was born in
45.
58. I
She
know
was
how
born in
old she was.
57.
Oh,
Or is? Yeah,
57.
okay.
2 years. Because I went to prove around 55. I was there 2 years. She was Sherry was born in 53.
Sherry, 50.
I graduated in 68 and I started working full time in 69. I wasn't
That's
very
Sherry
young
lives
when
over
I
here.
started.
Well, that's Luann.
That's Luann over here.
Sherry lives out on Leach Road.
Okay.
She lives right across. They built a house right across. You know where the old lease farm was?
Or where the
Where Linda Coomer and Dave live now. Lee and Sherry live right across. Part of the old Bear farm, which was Lee's grandfather. Or the Truax farm or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the same place he's been living.
Yeah, yeah, he's been there.
Yeah.
They've been
Yeah,
there
because he painted a car for me.
Right.
But there was never only one house on that road, you know. They all, that was the lease. Will leases.
And then Frank
house.
Skinner finally built one.
Yeah.
And then and they were only 2 there for years
For
and
a
years.
long time. Now they got roads
Now
going
there's
back in
subdivision
even.
Yeah.
Off
What
in
do you know
Lee's
about that
Road.
lake? Truax Lake. What about that lake? Is there anything
Got
changed
water
on that?
in
It's
it.
always been
What lake? Truax Lake.
Truax.
Still wet.
Yeah, it's got water in it.
I mean, did they ever do anything back when? I mean, I remember they used to fish on it more,
Yes.
or you know.
It's not good for much of anything else.
Yeah.
I don't think.
There's
But
no
they-
shoreline anywhere that's
Mm-mm.
decent.
But they did used to go fishing. They had a place that they could get on it. to go
Lee's
fishing.
dad and mother still own that. They still have a right of way.
Oh, do they?
I don't think they even have a lot. I think all they got's more or less a
Right, but
Right
where Lease Road comes out onto
Yeah.
Hummer Lake Road.
they got so Mert and Doris thought they ought to keep that. If the boys ever want to go fishing there, they had
Oh.
a place to get on the lake. I think Alan, their oldest boy, I think he does fish there some. The rest of them.
I know they always had to get, I thought they get
I think
permission
they
to
do
go there
Grubby or
fishing because it was more or less
name
kind
of
of
that man that lived over on the other side of the lake. They used to
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We picked strawberries or something.
They were great.
How long
You
was
know,
that
Green
house
Street.
there, the one on the way back?
That's the one we're
Primus.
talking about. I think we're
That's the one I'm talking about.
Boy, that was there
It's
a
been a long
long
time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You
Still
know, the
there?
kids today wouldn't think of doing stuff that we did when we were kids, like there in Lake shoveling it off and playing hockey, or
Oh,
Take
no,
and cut.
no.
take a hayfield and cut it down and make a baseball field. And
They do on Valdego, the Allen kids. They do, they always have a place every summer, or every winter, for ice skating.
Do they?
you don't see them do
Yeah,
that. But
Larry-
all the places
Larry
that have
is
ice
close
skating,
to
you know, we're
We
doing.
used to entertain
Boy,
ourselves.
these kids are getting pretty well grown, aren't
Used to
they?
have a bonfire out there and play
Sure.
hockey and skate.
Larry
And
has
we used to
grandchildren.
walk
Yeah.
clear up to, in back of McIntyre's there on Oakwood Road. You know what I mean? There's a big, there's a
A
little
little
lake,
pond.
pond and back, that would be back of who now? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, you know where Jim Walter's
Yeah.
wife lives,
Yeah.
right? About straight back of
Oh,
there.
okay, all right.
And back up in there, there's a pond. We used to walk up there every night.
After supper, yeah, we walked her up front of the state park and toboggan, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was,
Little kids now, they,
wouldn't that be something to pull a
They
sled
have
and
to have
toboggan?
everything
What's the name of
planned.
that hill that's got the
Hill.
fireplace on top of it, or had the fireplace on it?
Pinnacle.
Pinnacle.
That's still out there?
I don't-
Or did somebody knock it down?
They burnt
Was
the
that
building
Hadley-
down.
Oh, I
was
know that
the
one.
Hadley Hill?
That's out in the Hadley Hills,
Yeah.
On the
A
Hadley
lot of
Hill, okay.
snowmobilers go out there.
We used
What was
to,
the
we used to
music?
drive them
Yeah,
out
you
to
remember
It was
about
a,
that.
it was a big octagon building
That had two or
with
three
windows
buildings
all the
on
way
it.
around. Oh, yeah. All the way around, and you go up there, and you could look in every direction of it.
Did they build that during the war? Someone was
Well-
talking about that. They
Yeah.
thought they sent,
It was
Yeah.
lookout.
Lookout
Lookout
tower.
or something.
Yeah, that was,
that wasn't true.
well, Ed Sealbinder lived on. This man's name was Near. And he had all that property, and Ed Sealbinder then lived there. And of course, Near was like a lot of people that the Depression got, you know.
There was all those Germans out there, they was watching CD coming.
Yeah. But there was a lot of stories.
A lot of stories about that old German clan out there.
Yeah.
But you know that woods there, just before you get to that, there's a true story, and it is true about when they robbed the bank in Hadley,
Yeah, I heard that.
and they chased them into there, and they shot it out in there. Herm Profrock was one of the people that was out there, and they always said that Herm, they killed, there was 3 or 4 of them, they killed 1 or 2 of them before they.
That was
They always said that Herm Profrock shot 1 of them. I don't know about that, but I know the story was true about that they cornered him in there,
Out midnight.
robbing.
There was all kinds of stories during World War
But
II.
that part, I'm sure was
All
that,
the coon
you know,
dogs,
that they,
coon dogs that ran
because
around.
Bucky's dad was involved in it, because Bucky and his folks lived right across from the bank that they robbed.
Speaking of ponds, so we used to call it Hutchings Pond.
Mhm.
Back there,
That
back
belonged to
of,
my Uncle Charlie,
huh?
Charlie Kent?
Yeah,
right? And it was right back of Agnes Hutchins' house.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, on the
That was his
corner there.
property.
And that
Which
was,
is where?
it wasn't deep, so we always
Corner of
went.
Oakwood and Church Street,
Okay.
there's if you turn and go east, there's a little pond down
Yeah.
there. Sometimes
the
it's
house.
quite full, and sometimes it's quite empty.
Mhm.
That's
We
what you
used
call
to-
Hutchings Pond?
We called it Hutchings
We
Pond
used
because
to
Hutchings
skate
lived there on the
there.
corner and we just
Yeah.
called it
wasn't much of a
Hutchings.
farm.
That's
was it?
where we went skating.
No, it wasn't
Pond.
No, just a
just a
pond.
pond
Okay.
for ice skating.
Yeah.
It's big enough to ice skate.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, remember Frank Hausnamer had the grader he kept there, and
Mhm.
Uncle Charlie there, he had a shed, and they kept their road graders there
Yes.
for work for
Worked for the
overtime.
county.
Yes.
Kept their graders at home.
And finally, my own to build a house there where, on the property where the shed was. That's where she lived. She and her mother lived there for quite a while.
I'd sure like the one that we knew.
Well, that's in bad shape though.
I know it is.
Oh,
but
jeez.
If I was a young man, I'd try
Yeah.
somehow to get a hold of it.
What would you like?
Janice has been bugging
That
me
was
out.
us.
Oh, yes.
But then down that
And
basement,
then
I went in that basement, that's, oh.
Well, they haven't done anything in 30 or 40 years or more.
Not a thing.
The blasters
I-
have been out lots of
I
places.
understand that. but
That's gotta be completely gutted, really.
Probably
Try
another
to save,
150,000.
probably try to save any of the woodwork that's in there, if they can find the old woodwork. But, it would be a beautiful house, it'd be a beautiful bed and breakfast too.
So that one man put a bid in, but they didn't take it. Must be he bid real low.
Linda don't know why, she's gonna find out.
Well, since we're talking about lakes, it's totally different, but I just had heard this one, and I don't know. It's a Huff Lake one, it's called Lakeshore Drive-In.
Lakeshore Drive-In was out on M15,
Yeah.
almost
What
down to
is
Seymour
this?
Lake Road.
Restaurant. Casey
Really?
Echoes had a
Casey
restaurant
Echoes.
there.
At a restaurant.
Oh, is that what that was
Case
called?
Metzko.
Yep.
Okay, it was on M15 and,
North side of the road, right by that,
There's a big steel barn there now. Guy has something sitting there for sale so much. Right in that area.
Remember the big
Really?
square house?
They run a good little restaurant there.
Did
They
they?
run a good restaurant.
She was a good cook.
Yeah.
wow.
who was she?
Casey
Case
Echoes.
Metzko.
Nancy.
Now, how long
And
was that?
also,
Does anybody remember how long it was there?
Bradford was a cook there,
He was-
Mrs. Bradford cooked
Oh, I
there too.
heard Ronnie say he stopped on his way home when Sherry was born.
Land. Mother Sutton.
She worked there.
I was in there one night and,
But you and I, we went. We used to.
Oh, we
eat.
used to stop in there and bowling.
That's where I met my wife.
So was this,
Where's that?
Lakeshore Drive-In.
Was that?
where would you get, what time would you think this restaurant existed?
It was in, I know it was in,
50.
I know it was there in 57, 58.
it wasn't there a good long time, was it?
Was it there 10 years, you think?
Maybe even not more than
Well, it was there in 53, I know of.
I know it was there in 57.
Hey, we're getting there.
That's when I met Janice.
Do I hear 60s?
that. There's a night.
My guess would be probably 8 to 10 years it was there. And I don't know why they, because they had it was a good little restaurant, a good,
It's just a different place to have it, I mean.
yeah,
does
well,
that-
they owned the property.
Yeah, I just didn't think of anything out that way.
Shirley Bradford was
Then
probably
there
who I was
used
thinking
to
of.
be a
I think she was in
restaurant
there
up
before she
where
was married
Dr.
to
Altman
Red.
is.
Yeah.
I remember being in there
Okay.
talking to her and I said, she was in there with
Then
Jim.
across the road from it, they had a
I said
slaughterhouse.
something to her about, that's her
Where they used
husband,
to butcher
you know, just kidding.
cattle.
Across from there?
Flanagan's.
Flanagan's.
Flanagan's run a slaughterhouse.
Case
Oh,
Metzko.
yeah, Shirley and her husband.
Oh, okay, across from
Really
this
great.
restaurant, you're saying there was a lot.
Case.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of kids.
Well, that's
See,
good,
Kay
right?
she had 2 boys, Jerry and then she what was the
Dan.
girls?
Dan.
Dan
And
what was it? Nancy.
Then there was a restaurant up where the new dance studios just opened.
Yeah.
We used to have taxi cab
Dan.
at that time.
There was a taxi cab?
Mhm.
Where is this, Maryville?
Where Dennis's.
Were
Oh, Dennis is,
right across
They had a
from
restaurant in there.
Oxford Bank.
The guy that had the taxi cab.
Sue Sims asked about that. She couldn't find anybody that remembered the
She'd
restaurant.
asked.
Did she ask you?
when was the restaurant there?
I don't ever remember.
There was a family by the name of Millers, and the girl married Chuck Palashan. They had a taxi, and they run that restaurant.
I remember the
Where did you
taxi,
see
but I
that
don't remember.
restaurant?
the
Yeah, it was in there for probably, wasn't terrible long, but it was
No.
for 2 or 3 years. There was a restaurant in there. They run the restaurant, and
Was that there in the 50s?
yeah, it would have been in the middle 50s.
Probably
Yeah.
because I don't remember, because it was probably when I was in the service it was there.
But the 2 men.
Well,
That's
it's been there
not-
longer than that, Ron.
Wasn't there too long.
What about where A&W is?
They had this-
There was an earlier restaurant.
3Ds.
3Ds it was
Three
called.
Ds, and then, was there something before that? Or did the
No.
road come
No.
out that way, always?
Just
into
a
the
point.
triangle like
Just a
that?
point.
Well, it was arranged a little different than it is now.
And where the
You know, they
grocery
changed
store
it.
is, was there anything there?
Where?
Right where Tom's is, was there anything
That was
there?
the first business that's there. There was a flower shop and a grocery store.
By Harold Schmidt.
Harold Smith run the grocery store and Shirley run the flower shop.
And then where Willow Point is now, that was the house, wasn't it?
Hollings, the one
That was
on
Hollings,
3D.
and Hollings built 3Ds.
Okay.
But Judge Gallhart owned it before.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yes.
That's probably
That
where, that's
makes
probably
a lot of sense.
one of the,
Somebody must have
next
been
year
awful
Folks
short.
House,
to
that's
build that
probably
house.
one of the
Isn't that
older,
strange?
Yeah.
I would say so.
yeah.
What about all the couple stone houses along there? Were they later on?
One was
Now that
built by
they're gone.
Alsnamer and
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always named that up there, had a
I
lot of money.
think, I think he built all of them.
you know, I kind of
so.
think so too.
Yes.
The school.
There was 3 stone houses
Yeah.
there, and a
Where Benny
great
Westerby
big
used to live
sand
on.
hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Humongous.
Hmm.
And when we built the, what's the intermediate school, Lenny Owen owned it, and the school bought the dirt. And they moved it with scrapers, pans from there, and they leveled it right off. That was the deal. He'd sell it if it ended up level. Lenny.
What was that, Ronnie?
Lenny Owen owned it.
What?
Big sand.
Big sand hill,
Remember Big
Right
Sand
where the
Hill
wash
being there?
rack.
where the wash rack is.
So, yeah, that whole
okay,
thing
all
is
right.
sand.
And
it
we,
looks
the
like to me.
school, we bought it, not the property, the dirt. And the agreement was we pay him so much a yard, and one of his stipulations was that he'd sell it, but it had to end up level, which was no problem, because we wanted all the dirt we could get anyway. And they built a toll road, or not a toll road, but a haul road over just up beside 15, and they never had to go out on the highway. They'd run back over these big scrapers, and they cleaned it up.
So that means that hill was a lot higher than it is, where those houses are?
Oh heavens,
Oh,
there was
my
a hill out
gosh.
there.
It's like a mountain,
It was like a mountain.
really.
Yeah, it was
Birds
big.
used to board
Yeah, you know what's your round holes? where the
round
birds were
holes
born?
with the oh, it was.
Okay, I'm starting to think we've lost a lot of hills around this town.
Yeah.
Because there was
They
another
filled
one
in a lot of
about,
holes.
Yeah.
there was another one about that same height out on M15, just the other side of, who's out there now. Anyway, it used to be the,
On Groveland Road.
no, it was right on M15.
Yeah, but
Well, yeah, but it was all, yeah, you're right. Groveland and,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still hilly there, right,
Oh,
they
yeah.
Well, that was high too.
Yeah.
They took a
Yeah,
lot.
it was.
There's
That
some
was-
hill left there yet.
When you really
There's
think
nothing
about
like
this
a little-
area, it's either high or low.
And everybody laughing me.
And a lot of flowing wells, so it's
You know, I knew
interesting.
at one time how many thousand yards of dirt they pulled out there. And it was, they pulled,
Oh,
they
that had
hauled
been
out there
lots.
for 2 or 3 weeks steady.
Wow.
They dumped more bill over in there. Lenny got a good deal out of it, and the school got a good deal.
Where'd Lenny put it?
We put it on school property. We filled with it.
Filled in
We
the
bought
old
it.
pond, then
We bought it, and
filled in the mill pond.
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
Lenny owned them stone houses, them 2 stone houses at one time, in
Lenny
that
did?
hill, yeah.
Oh.
And he had always thought that if you build a dealership, that's where it would be,
Oh.
but we didn't, and he ended up selling.
Yeah, how did they fill in all the mill race and that pond behind the, I mean,
Well,
there
they
had to
filling
been
in
a lot
much.
of.
There's where
Really?
that how where the
That's
football
why.
field
Well, I
is.
didn't know that part, but I'm
They
talking
did for
across
the
the
old mill
road.
race, a pond in there. I think they just about took the wall out, and that was it. And it just filled in a little bit.
Wow.
It's down, you see, that's a hollow.
Yeah, that part, I'm
They had a wall
thinking
mill
behind the
around
mill
to
and
the
all
mill
that,
like
but
this.
I guess the mill is a little bit down too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Over
So-
the years, they probably, when I was on the school board, where that practice field is, we pulled a lot of dirt out of there and took it up around the playground and stuff, around H.T. Burton, around there.
Okay.
But I don't ever think they might have hauled some dirt in there for a cushion or a base, but I don't think they ever hauled much dirt.
And what did it all look like when that dam broke and the mill was drained? I mean,
Well-
what? I can't even imagine the sight of a
Well,
whole
it
thing
went
being,
beside the mill. It didn't
pond.
actually go through the mill because it
Went in a
it
curve.
stopped it from going through the mill because the water backed all the way up. It went back around to South Street on the dam and went down Kersley
Ah.
Creek and took the bridge out downtown,
Okay.
plus the other one on Wall Street.
No, I didn't take,
No, that wasn't at the same time, I don't
South
think.
Street.
I mean, Mill Street.
it didn't take the bridge out.
I thought it took the bridge out downtown.
They rebuilt that, they put in them tubes, but it didn't take it out.
Okay.
That never
What
flowed.
took it out? The one on South Street.
The dam did, honey. I'm talking about the one down here by the mill.
Oh,
I thought that one downtown went out too.
I don't think so.
Now, there was, in front of the mill, there was 2 little bridges or not? Because wasn't the
Yes.
race going underneath or?
To the race and the creek.
Okay.
We used
And what
to
did
play
they do with
under
that?
there.
Just
They
fill
just
it in,
filled
just
it in
fill
or
it.
what?
Us kids used to run under the
I wouldn't be
street
surprised if the bridge
going
ain't
to
still
mill.
there, is it?
Oh, really?
Just
Well,
filled
that
in
some of
underneath.
that cement work is there. Because you know there was a ledge on each side because we used to walk up in there and shoot rats with 22.
Yeah.
And there was a ledge we could walk on each side.
Whatever happened to the old mill works? From the
Nobody
mill?
knows, do they?
No. But you know that the Atlas Mill, have you ever been up to see the Atlas Mill in Flint there at that village or whatever you call it, it's a village up there. They moved the mill from Atlas
Go
up.
past the stove and turn left.
And just,
And they've got
if
the
you go
same,
in,
Ronnie, they've got the same kind of works in that mill up there that was in ours.
left-hand
Well,
side,
ours had a
that's the
flat
light.
rate.
Yeah,
It's
this
hit
Atlas
by
did too.
the-
Yeah, that-
That's what,
The
there's
greenery.
runs up there in that,
Yeah.
It
Village
does say
in
for
front.
the old equipment?
yeah,
Up where the
Huckleberry,
Huckleberry Railroad.
yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, they
nice
moved
working
it up
mill.
there.
yeah. And boy, that's a,
Yeah.
they did wonders with that.
That looks really good. It was interesting going there.
Of course, wasn't that more or less, that didn't have the cob-ons and stuff that our mill has. That was pretty much just a good square, straight building.
Yeah, it was a rectangle building.
And see, ours is what's made it so expensive is all them add-ons they put on over the years. Half,
Both
The
Yeah.
ends.
shyster pieces. Jeez.
Both ends.
but I'll tell you another mill that they done a beautiful job on, and that's the one at Linden. Have you ever been in that
No,
one?
I haven't.
That's a nice
I wanted to go to that one, but I haven't done it.
that is,
But that's really something up there at Huckleberry Railroad. They got the old stones in there and they still make flour and everything else
Yeah,
in
we
there.
did.
And, it's amazing. I mean, the timbers in that building are outstanding.
Wonder when, you know when that was built?
I don't know when
Really
it
on
was
tape,
built,
and I
right?
go, but why is she doing
I,
Is it as old as the Ortonville mill?
Huh?
Is it as old as the Ortonville mill?
that? So, right.
well, I don't know if
just
it, Ronnie, I don't think that's quite as old as Ortonville's.
I don't either.
I think it's newer, and I think they just caught it in time so that it didn't deteriorate like this one down here because everybody, Hamilton just let this one go.
Yeah, from the time Hamilton bought it till they never put a dime in it. If he did, it was so cheap and cobbly that
That's really too bad.
Now, what about out, switching areas, but what about M15 and Greenchild Road and Mill Street? Businesses out there. Like, I remember there being an old flea market in that long building
Yeah,
against
that was
the.
a lumber, ex-lumber.
Yeah.
that was a bad thing when Ortonville let that flea market get away from it.
Oh, yes.
Well, now listen, a flea market brings a lot of business to here.
Now
It could have been built in, I mean, the way it was in there, it was cobbled up in there. But
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they're doing the ones today now with new buildings, I mean, that would be a beautiful.
Was there
Place
anything
they
in there
Besides,
before the?
I just love. When we moved to town, we brought a cow named Boots with us, and we used to stake her out there and eat grass. The only thing that was on that corner was a big sign, a big advertisement sign. It was a triangle, kind of like a triangle, and that and we used to play ball on that lot.
Out there at that
Yeah.
corner where the hardware is and all that.
That's,
Now, what was there? So there was nothing before the lumber company was in
It
there?
was a little factory and a lumber company.
that's where this garage.
Who was that man's name?
Oh, wow.
Binkins,
Yeah.
John Binkins, then he moved out there to where Camp Tamarack is.
Saw
Binkins owned that too, and then he sold it to the state.
stuff underneath it to raise it.
Yeah.
And then
He was a pretty shrewd guy.
the hall down here.
I hadn't heard
Just
that
a little,
name.
just a little.
It was their demonstration.
No, then they had the lumber yard there, and that was Boschma had it. Did
No,
Boschma
Boschma
have one?
had downtown.
Downtown. Who had the one out there before him then?
Thinking,
Dinkins built it.
Did
And
Pickens
Packer,
have the lumber yard too?
and Pat Kersulis run it.
Okay, but who
And
had it after that?
Charlie, Bernie Hardy worked for him. Charlie was his first name.
Okay.
Mills, Charlie Mills.
Yeah.
And then they moved
That's
out
a,
there on 50.
No,
then they went there, from there they went downtown to Boschman's.
No, they went
No,
out,
they went
Charlie
on
went out
15.
there. Bosch Boschman went up. See, Louis Williams' dad started a lumberyard downtown.
But Boschman had it too down
Then
there.
he sold it to Boschman.
Yeah.
And then Charlie Mills bought that one, and then he
He
moved
went
out
out
there.
where James
Okay.
Lumber used
Okay.
to be.
See, Mary Lou and I moved this garage we got here was Charlie Mills built it for a demo up there. When he got ready to go, I went up and bought it. We jacked it up and loaded it on a hay wagon and brought it home.
I was on a crosscut saw, you know.
Wow.
We cut some beams and stuck it under it, jacked it up and put it on one of Bill's Waring's husband's hay wagon. And
Moved down here one Sunday morning about 6 o'clock.
didn't have too many permits or anything
Oh,
else.
you didn't have to.
I don't know whether we had to or not. We didn't anyway.
Now, what was also out there at that corner, those four corners? Anything
There
else?
used to be a restaurant on the corner.
Yeah, my Aunt Myrtle and Uncle Frank ran the restaurant there.
What was it called?
What?
Myrtle,
Wildcat?
what was Myrtle's last name?
Guile?
Wildcat Corners.
Yeah, but what was the restaurant called? I don't know if it had a name.
Well,
So would it be in place of the gas station now? Would it have been there? Or would it have been over where?
It would be right about where.
About where the country kettle is now.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Same
Was
place.
there-
Okay, that's what I was
When
wondering.
Bill
Was it-
used big two-story
Pardon?
building.
When didn't Bill use?
Wilders run it.
West
Remember
Beach,
Wilders
right?
run it? Westerby's run it. Bill Hughes run it.
And they used that for VFW
Then
hall,
it
moved
was
it down
moved.
on Varsity Drive.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know the garage at, what's the name of the beauty shop up there? It's there now in the old Narren house behind the pizza.
First
place.
Impressions.
First Impressions. You know their garage?
Yeah.
They've got a garage. Well, that used to sit over on the corner, and that was part of the gas station.
Or the
Okay.
pizza place.
Gas station was where the pizza place is. Then when did the other gas station, wasn't it Bud's?
Yeah,
Where
Bud's.
is that?
Where
Which
where
corner?
right where it
Right
is
where
now.
Marathon is.
Bud built
Right
that
where
building.
Marathon, okay.
And Norm Allen run it during the war, and then when Bud come back from the war, Norm went across and built the one on the other corner.
Remember when the Bel Air Cobra crashed?
Yeah.
Bud's buddy?
Boy, we all left school, and I remember as a kid run clear out there.
Crashed on Grange Hall Road.
Who was the record guy?
What was he talking?
Bud's record guy.
You're talking
Bob?
Bob, yeah.
Dirty Bob?
I don't think-
He's, he had a stroke, and he's up in a
Oh, really?
nursing home. up in-
Bob Cruz.
You're still alive.
Yeah.
So then there was a gas station then where Little Caesars is then first. That was the first
Golf
one.
gas station, wasn't it?
First it was a
Yes.
Standard Oil, because Elton Bailey built it, and he worked for Standard. And then that went to Gulf.
Somebody by the name of Perry, their last name was
Yeah.
Perry.
He had a gas station on three corners there at one time.
Yeah.
I just see a picture the other day of that corner.